Bless you.
Thank you. Oh.
You okay?
Yeah, just a little tired.
That Dallas Sacramento playing game get you?
That's what it was.
Staying up to see if McDavid will get his 100th point in Edmonton.
Yep. No, it was no food. Few beers on the golf course, and then a couple drinks with my wife.
Okay.
And all of a sudden it was 10 to 11. I'm like, what am I doing awake?
Felipe is delighted this morning, Steve. And I will say, I thought about our guest yesterday, in which he said that these playing games could have meaning. Okay. Because you find out,
what guys are made of.
Yeah. And can you count on Bam and Tyler Hero, or should you use them as bait to go get bigger fish?
I saw that score. I wasn't paying any attention. I'm like, hey, what's the score? Because Maddie had a game. I'm looking like, they're up by like 24 and a half.
Well, both games were done at half, basically. Miami up 24, Dallas up 23. Yep. Ooh, excuse me. Oh, come on, go Raiders. You had a 3-2 lead late. You just needed a point. You were in good shape.
All right, let's be safe out there.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floormeister Studios. Floormeisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Top of the morning to you on this Thursday. We're a week away from the draft. We are 48 hours away from the start of the full NBA and NHL playoffs. How the heck are you? Miller and Moulton. MillerandMoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Thanks so much for being with us. How you doing this morning? How's your week going?
It's going. I needed that. I needed a little wake up there. I'm glad you really let that how the heck are you go. There's certain mornings that I need it more than others. This morning was one of those. So I needed that. I'm ready. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I hope everybody else appreciated that.
It's a great time of the sports year. I mean, we're 3 weeks into the Major League Baseball season. Basketball and hockey, the good stuff is, it's kind of sort of underway in basketball. It's going to be underway by Saturday in hockey. We're a week away from the draft. I don't know. Feels like a good time of year.
It really is. And we do our part to try to make sure that the football fan, that the guy who just football, that we try to give them the rest of the picture. And
Right.
this time of year with the hockey and basketball playoffs starting is a great time. And if you're a baseball guy, like you said, there's hope for many teams. There's a few that are already done. I mean, we're 3 weeks in. If you're a White Sox fan, it's over.
Well, right. It was over 3 weeks ago. Although, when they were 2-2, you were going, who knows? Maybe they could be relevant to May. No.
No, but there are others who have pulled it off. Like the Marlins. Hanging around 500. They were expected to be a really bad team. So if you're a Marlins fan, you're like, all right.
Right.
All right. I mean, the Cardinals fan, they thought the world had ended and they were going to be awful. Oh, well, 500.
Right.
So, all right.
Better than expected. Huh. I will say, there are a lot of baseball fan bases that are angry at ownership.
Yes, there are. And you and I are huge supporters of that. And there are a few in the Twitch chat room who have said the same thing over the past few weeks. The only real way to let ownership know that you're mad, I'm sorry, there are multiple ways to let ownership know you're mad. There's only one true way to get ownership to do anything about it. And it's not flying banners. It's not putting bags over your head. It's simply not showing up.
Yep. Not spending a dime. Not a dime.
I worked in minor league hockey for many a year. And one of the gentlemen that I worked with, and he's now in Charleston, South Carolina, and you know him well, Frank Lapsley is his name.
Great dude.
And Frank was in charge of the building that I worked in. I was in charge of sales and marketing, and Frank was in charge of booking the building and everything to do with the building. And I remember in the first couple of years of the minor league hockey team, the Everblades that's in the market that we are headquartered in. And they've always done very well at the gate. And we gave away tickets the first. There's always free tickets out there for a minor league team. And he always said it doesn't matter if they're in line buying a ticket or if they get a free ticket. They have X number of dollars they're going to spend in your arena, ballpark, stadium when they show up. And you kind of count on that. You know what that per cap is, what every head, every butt is going to spend when they walk in. When they quit showing up, anything times zero, wait for it, is still zero.
Yes, it is. Yes,
and
it
in
is.
St. Louis and with the Twins and a few others, they're not showing up.
The Pirates have already had 4 home games this year with paid crowds of less than 9,000. For the entire season last year, they had 1. That's a fan base letting you know we're angry at you.
And it is a great ballpark.
Oh, my goodness. Clearly one of the 5 best in baseball.
Beautiful views, wide concourses, lots of food and drink.
Amazing view. Oh, goodness.
Spectacular ballpark.
You could be in a hotel across the bridge. You can walk to you can walk to the game. Okay, if you're staying in the hotel just across the bridge. Oh, my goodness, it's fantastic.
And obviously, and this isn't because my wife's a Pittsburgh native, Pittsburgh is a great sports town.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a parochial sports town.
Very much so.
They only care about their teams. And I mean nothing else.
Right.
And so when they are their beloved Penguins stink. It's obviously not football season. And when they're already making decisions like that about their summer team,
right?
they're sending a message, David. They are definitely sending a message.
And the players are aware of it. A couple of homestands into the season, and the players are aware of it. Paul Skeens had a very thoughtful answer yesterday when asked about, trying to send a message to ownership. And the reporter was like, the fans are sending their message. And he said, yeah. And do you know what we have to send? We have to win. He goes, we have to win enough so that ownership thinks investing in us is worthwhile. He goes, now, if we win enough, there might be more people in the stands. He said, but literally the fans are making their voices heard. He goes, oh, trust me, we've noticed. He said, but now we as players, we have to get the owner and the GM's attention. And we haven't done that. Pirates are off to a bad start. Now, I'd argue, I don't know that they can win with the lineup that's been put together because it's not good enough. Not even close. But it's interesting that Skeens is already talking about it. Remember, he's been in the majors a year and 3 weeks. And tell me this isn't shaping whether or not he wants to stay a Pirate long term.
And think about that. If, Marlins fan, Pirates fan, you've got some good pitching, some good players. And in the Marlins case, they're already talking about who they're going to trade first.
Right.
And if you're a Pirates fan, you've got an A starter. And you probably know as soon as he hits free agency, he's going to not walk, but run out of your city.
In fact, that probably when he's 2 years away from free agency, that they're going to maximize his trade value and trade him then. So you're at 4 years and counting then on how long you're going to have Paul Skeens. In fact, it could be 3 years and counting. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. We are going to have a draft-heavy show concerning our guests. All of our guests have been booked to talk some aspect of the NFL draft. 2 specifically cover teams who are drafting in the 20s. And then 1 gentleman covers the draft as a whole. So a week out. All right. Today, our guest list will be very draft heavy. Doesn't mean what Miller and Moulton talk about in and around that has to be draft heavy, but our guest list is draft heavy. We will have a hockey guest or 2 tomorrow on the eve of the Stanley Cup playoffs getting underway.
We all know that David is a draft guy. I'm more of a can or bottle guy. But we will focus on the draft pretty heavily today as we get ready a week out from the NFL draft and see if the Giants are going to work out Shedeur Sanders at least one more time between now and then.
Could you have a better first year and a half as an owner than Josh Harris and the group that bought the Commanders for $6 billion? Did you hear the news that came out of D.C. late yesterday? Yeah, according to reports, he's going to finance 2.5 of the $3 billion to build a new stadium on the old RFK site. Man, oh man, he is erasing every single part of the Daniel Snyder era in record time.
Yes, he is. That's the part of it that's fascinating. But David, the other part of this is that it shows you, back to the Pirates and I don't think the Marlins qualify. I don't think the Rays qualify. But when you look at the Commanders, the former Redskins, it's a storied franchise who is beloved throughout the region. I lived in Raleigh, North Carolina for a while when the Carolina Panthers came into being. They caught the bug when the Panthers were good right off the hop.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go around Raleigh, which is about 2.5 hours from Charlotte, they're Commanders fans in that area. The Commander/Redskin fan base is enormous, and they were dormant. And all you have to do is show the fan base that you care, that you're going to try, and you're not going to own like an idiot. And it's amazing how quickly that fan base has come back. Now, it helps when you drafted Jaden Daniels. It really
no, no question. I mean, that as an owner, you're getting a little lucky there. You are. But if you put your money behind a little luck, all righty then. But to further your point, Dale Earnhardt Jr. grew up in Kannapolis, North Carolina. And by the time he grew up a Redskins fan. And even though the Panthers came about early in his childhood, he's like, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. I'm a Redskins fan. Now, Commanders. And he's a proud one. And has suffered publicly with them for the last 20 plus years. Miller and Moulton, nice show lined up for you. Lot to kick around on this Thursday. We hope you have a good week. And thanks for remaining with us. MillerandMoulton.com.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to NolanAgency.com. That's 941-639-1122. or NolanAgency.com.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net. Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Thanks, Dan. You too.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Yesterday, Mark, was the first day of the spring transfer portal season opening up. You could officially, as of yesterday, get up and leave and go somewhere.
And I'm leaving. Went to the West Coast.
Is that official that he's at UCLA?
I don't know if it's official, David. I just saw that he was going to UCLA. It had been speculated for a week, so it wasn't much of a surprise when I read that he was going to UCLA.
And reportedly, he's going to get an awful lot less than what he was making at Tennessee. But there are some fascinating stories because it's a portal in all sports, you know. It's not just football. It's, you know, all of them. Basketball, you name it. Did you see, like, the UCF men's basketball team? Did you see the news yesterday? They're losing the whole team. They had 13 guys on the roster, 4 graduated. The other 9 with eligibility, all in the portal. Now, some of them, you know, one's going to Auburn, one's going to Providence. Another, I think, is already signed with Wofford, which is interesting because UCF obviously in the Big 12. But, you know, some guys go down a half a level or a level for playing time. But, you know, UCF actually had some nice wins last year in men's basketball. They weren't a tournament team. You know, they played in that, I think it was the Crown.
Right. They played in the Vegas paid for by Fox tournament.
Right. And I think lost to Nebraska in the final.
Yes, that's exactly right.
But they had some good wins last year in the Big 12. In fact, I think, Mark, they began Big 12 play. Right? Well, they beat Kansas. They beat Kansas in Orlando. I thought very early in the season they went to Lubbock and beat Texas Tech, like first conference game of the year. I could be wrong, but I thought they did that. But, you know, they were competitive. And now literally, I mean, remember when John Cal left Kentucky a year ago? And he went to Arkansas, and he looks into the camera and he goes, well, now we have to talk about the team. We don't have a team. I mean, literally at that moment in time, there wasn't a single guy. It is fascinating if you have an up-to-date sports information department, you know, and if you go to the team website and the roster, and if they're, I wonder how many of them are actually eliminating guys, you know, as soon as they raise their hand and say, we're going into the portal. You know, what's the 25-26 roster? Well, at UCF men's basketball, as of this morning, it's 0. Okay. A lot of potential there.
Now, for the record, UCF brought in 9 transfers last year.
Right.
And I would guess they're going to bring an amount the same this year, as they'll have some freshmen coming in that'll get a scholarship or 2. And the rest of it's by transfer. Don't need to make these guys employees. Don't need any continuity in the roster. Don't need any way to ensure the fan base has a clue who's coming back next year.
I don't know why. You know, I don't know why the Dolphins are trading Jalen Ramsey. By the way, to go down that road again, do you know that the cap hit that they'll get for trading Ramsey? Do you know how much money they'll have left under the cap for the
like
year.
9 million, 7 million, basically enough to sign their draft class.
Well, exactly. And you don't even know if, because obviously during the course of the season, guys get hurt and this, that, and the other thing. And well, even if you bring in guys at minimum and you prorate them, you got to have the money to do it. And right now, the Dolphins, when they trade Jalen Ramsey, do not look as if they'll have enough money, because right now they're got 10 draft picks to A, sign their draft class, and really B, to go about business normally once the season starts. Unreal.
Okay, back to what you didn't understand about college basketball, because
Yes,
you did go on a
I did. I said
quick
I was
detour.
gonna.
Right,
did,
I know.
Right.
I'm reeling you back in, David.
Thank you. I don't understand. I don't. I get why the NCAA doesn't want to do it, I guess. But I don't understand why the schools don't want to do it.
Well, I can tell you why the schools don't want to do it.
Why?
Because, let me tell you, David. And thank you for asking. But I believe, these schools are still run by academic people. Presidents of universities are still academic people. And I believe that they are holding on to the dumbest phrase that still exists this century: student athlete. They are still holding on to this pipe dream that these professional players are still students, when in fact they're not.
No.
They are employees.
Yes.
And even more so, David, they are what you and I for many years longed to be. These players are independent contractors for hire. We work in an industry where, radio and television people can't pick up and move in the market and go to another competing station. It's against the rules. Not for college athletes. And why administrators have not seen through that and tried to make them accountable and keep them on a campus for more than a year, well, the only way they're going to be able to do that is to make them employees and sign them to contracts that they are bound by. But right now, Nico and Tennessee proved that the deal he had means nothing. And they can pick up and leave whenever they want. But administrators seem to be in the dark about that.
I don't get why it is they don't want to put a system together to control costs. Like this system, and we have left it alone for a few weeks. We're going to wait till it's finalized, if it gets finalized. This new system that they're trying to put into place, where all the big time schools get $21 million a year to do with whatever they want. Okay. Also, by the way, part of that system, they're wanting to sell out thousands of current college athletes. I mean, these people that supposedly are in the best interest of the athletes actually want to sell out thousands of them. But I don't understand, Mark, why they don't want cost assurity in their business model going forward. I don't know how you can have a business and not have cost assurity.
Well, David, I think you hit on it right there. You keep calling it a business. They still think it's a school.
How?
Well, David,
but
these administrators have never had to run a business before. Schools are not businesses. For the most part, they're public institutions, very different than a business. We don't run our government the same way we run our checking account. They don't run their business the same way, their school, the way most run a business.
Mark, I get that, but I don't know how you want to talk about head in the sand and not facing reality. How can you be involved in college athletics right now and not think it's a business? I mean, you actually think it has something to do with college? Where? How? The starting five is next.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. They are helping me with sleep apnea. And by helping me, I mean curing me. No more CPAP machine. No more snoring. No more tossing. No more waking up exhausted. Their expert team got me the right treatment, fast and hassle-free. If you want to feel energized and get rid of your snoring, call Sleep Treatment Direct today. 444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and
Mark
sound.
Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
This is Miller and Moulton.
DC, can I ask you a question? You keep saying you want Congress involved. To do what? I mean, they don't have a track record of doing a whole hell of a lot. What do you want them to do? And it's funny, DC, I see what you're saying totally in football and basketball, but I got to be honest, since I'm a hockey guy, Western Michigan, that's so huge for them to get a hockey title. Like, I think there's so much pride on that campus now because they've never won anything. But in football and basketball, DC, I'm totally with you.
DC, the reason that we don't mention Congress is we don't think Congress is going to give the NCAA what it is they want. We don't think they're going to give them the antitrust status that they want. A lot of organizations go to Congress and ask for it. How many times have they gotten it? Baseball got it in the 20s. Football got a partial. So we don't think Congress is going to go there. Congress doesn't like to give away antitrust exemptions. We think, the congressmen and women like to, make their speeches and get good headlines and what have you, and then they usually don't back college sports up, especially since college sports went before the Supreme Court recently and lost 9-0.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
22 minutes till the top of the hour. Ray Fittipaldo will join us 1 hour from now. All the guests on the show today have something to do with the NFL and the NFL draft. We are a week out from the draft, which will be in Green Bay. I'm curious just how successful that will turn out to be. There's not a lot to do in Green Bay besides the Packers, and they're not playing. So never mind, there's not a ton of hotel rooms, quite frankly.
That was one of the things that I was going to ask you about. And I know we got the starting five coming up, but I was listening to a few players talk about ex-players talk about draft week when you're a first round guy, whether it's, Under Armour or Nike or Adidas, they're going to bring you into that, they're going to have a party for their guys. Where the hell are they going to have all this stuff? Where is the draft week festivities going? I mean, are they renting out the biggest houses in Green Bay at Airbnb to have parties? I mean, where the hell are they going to have the private events, not the public events, but the private events for their clients? It's just, to me, that's interesting because what, are they going to go to Milwaukee? I mean, what the hell are they going to do?
Well, there is a very nice hotel that's been built in the last 5 years directly across the street from Lambeau Field. And there's a bar restaurant attached to the back of it and what have you. Can they do something? Could one business, Mark, do something there? Probably. But yeah, it's limited. There's a couple of decent hotels downtown, which are 5 to 8 minutes away from Lambeau, but they're older hotels. But I'm just curious. I applaud the NFL. It sounds great. And, Lambeau Field and the draft and the whole deal. But I'm curious, people, the last couple of drafts have come from all over the country. Nashville, Chicago, you name it. People have just traveled 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 miles to go to the draft. I'm curious how many people are going to travel for Green Bay.
The starting five. 5 big stories you need to know. Here is the starting five.
It was win or go home time for the Miami Heat last night, and they won. In fact, they led by 24 at the half in Chicago against the Bulls. Tyler Hero with 38. Heat cruise 109.90. That means the Bulls are done. I know I've been saying this all year. Are we sure Billy Donovan's safe in Chicago? I know he just got inducted, he's going to go into the Hall of Fame and all that, but I mean, they're in the play-in every year at best. They're not doing anything. At what point does he get sacked? But the Heat, tomorrow night in Atlanta, on TNT. If they win, they're the 8th seed, and they'll take on Cleveland. If they lose, their season's over. But at least their season continues for 48 more hours. And what a difference a day makes, Mark. On Tuesday night, the home teams won. On Wednesday night, the road teams won. Heat easily, Dallas easily. Dallas was up 23 at the half. Cruised to a 120-106 win over Sacramento. Anthony Davis, 27 points, 9 rebounds. Immediately after the game, the Kings fired their general manager, Monty McNair. That franchise is just a mess. Just a mess.
And they were so close to seeming to have it together.
Yep. Had Mike Brown as coach and, Monty 5 years as GM. Yeah. NHL. The playoff teams are now set. Les Habitants did it. Montreal doubled up Carolina 4-2 to clinch the final playoff spot. So in the East, it'll be Washington and Montreal. It'll be Toronto and Ottawa. It'll be the Lightning and the Panthers. And it'll be Carolina and the Devils. Meanwhile, in the West, trying to remember who finished in what order. I think it's Winnipeg, St. Louis, Las Vegas, Minnesota.
There you go.
Edmonton, Los Angeles, and Dallas, Colorado. There are 3 big-time first-round series in the NHL playoffs.
There really are. And I think you could add a 4th because I think Ottawa-Toronto is going to be better than you think. And unfortunately, with Hughes out for the Devils, and I think they're out a defenseman too who might be coming back, I don't know what the Devils have for Carolina. But every other 2-3 series, if you will, Kings-Edmonton, Colorado-Dallas, Florida-Tampa will be fantastic.
Winnipeg ended up with the most points in the league. They won in overtime last night, 2-1 against Anaheim. Detroit won their game 5-2 over the Devils. Nashville ended up with the 3rd worst record in the league. Barry Trotz brought in all those veterans, and it did not work. And you have to wonder, does he spend this offseason trading them all? Nashville did beat Dallas, however, 5-1, and the Stars did end the season scuffling. Don't know if that matters or not, but they did. Once again, how hockey's just a little bit different. We've told you some stories in the last week or so about guys being put into games for ceremonial last appearances and the opposing teams waiting around after the game to shake certain players' hands. The Vancouver Canucks have had the same trainer since Jimmy Carter was handing over the presidency to Ronald Reagan. They've had the same trainer for 45 years. The Las Vegas Golden Knights lined up as a team to shake the hands of the Vancouver Canucks trainer after beating Vancouver 4-1 last night because it was his final game in hockey.
A couple of weeks ago when Ovechkin set the record, when he went, the players all embraced him and that, but when he went to the bench, the big embrace that Ovechkin had was with who? The equipment manager. He'd been there the entire career of Ovechkin. That's the guy who takes care of the guys.
And Connor McDavid, despite injuries and for him a subpar season, did manage to score 100 points, though. An assist last night got him to 100 in Edmonton's 3-0 win over San Jose. NHL regular season ends tonight. Lightning are playing the Rangers in a meaningless game. NHL playoffs get underway on Saturday. Is that going to be our poll question, by the way?
What I texted you is our poll question.
Yeah. Which playoffs
It's
are you
up.
more? It's up?
It's up.
Once again, I'm, late to my own show.
That's all right. I was just going to let it go through the starting five and talk about it heading into the next segment, but we'll get there in a minute.
So which playoffs are you more geeked up about, right?
Right.
That's the poll question?
Right.
NBA or NHL? Vote accordingly. Baseball. Red Sox beat the Rays 1-0. How about the Red Sox bullpen yesterday? They faced 14 guys. They got 13 of them out. Struck out 9 of the 13 Rays they got out and only gave up 1 hit. That's pretty good. Yankees swept the Royals 4-3. Toronto beat Atlanta 3-1, but things are starting to get better for the Braves, even though they lost the series to the Jays. Why? Strider came back yesterday, pitched into the 6th. Yeah, he gave up 2 runs and took the loss, but that's okay. When healthy, he's one of the 5 best pitchers in the National League.
And he commented after the game, basically, to those doubting the Braves and him, bring it on.
Yep. And also, he's like, you do know who's coming back in like 2 weeks, right? Acuna. Just so get us now. Get us now. Before 8,438 in Miami. And I will say, Mark, you pointed it out. The Marlins around 500. It's been 2 beautiful days and evenings in South Florida. All right. They had 7,300 and change Tuesday night, 8,400 and change last night in a 6-2 loss to Arizona. Mets lost 2 in a row for the first time this year. Twins beat them in 10, 4-3. Man, the Giants are good. 4 in the first, 4 in the 7th. They took the series from the Phillies 11-4. Brewers hit 3 homers, beat Detroit 5-1. Lars Nootbaur with a 3-run homer for the Cardinals, who beat the Astros 4-1. Tatis, 2 more RBIs in the Padres 4-2 win over the Cubs. Dodgers scored 7 in the first. Ohtani with a homer, couple RBIs, held off Colorado 8-7. Jackson Holiday, this would be nice if he would actually start showing up with a grand salami for the O's in Baltimore's 9-1 win over Cleveland. Cal Raleigh is hit 2 more homers. Wilmer Flores and Cal Raleigh are the 2 biggest bats in baseball right now in the first 3 weeks of the season. Wilmer Flores of the Giants and Cal Raleigh of the Mariners. Seattle 5-3 over Cincinnati. We mentioned it in our opening segment, 4th time this year. The Pirates' home crowd is under 9,000. 85-29 on hand to watch O'Neal Cruz hit a grand slam in the Pirates' 6-1 win over the Nats. A's with 3 in the 6th beat the White Sox 3-1. Everybody been paying attention to the whole White Sox ownership thing? The Ishbias there they own more of the White Sox right now than any other person or family or group. They don't own 50%, but they now own 40% of the White Sox.
All right. I'm going to stop you right there. We know that they have boatloads of money. Based on how they've done in Phoenix, if you're a White Sox fan, would you be excited about the Ishbias taking over your franchise? Because they look at it as if at this point, they don't have a clue on how to run a pro sports franchise.
Can't disagree with a single thing you said. I will say, apparently, it's the other brother who would be the majority owner of the White Sox if they end up owning it. It's Matt Ishbia, right? Who's the guy who runs Phoenix, and his brother is actually a minority owner. I think they would flip this time. So who knows? Maybe the other brother would run things a little differently. But to me, Mark, the big part of the equation is, Reinsdorf wants a new stadium. And, Chicago doesn't have the money, and there's no juice behind giving the White Sox money for a new stadium either. Apparently, the Ishbias have a place that they're like, yeah, we'll take care of it. So that to me would be, oh, okay, cool. Way to go, guys. Texas beat the Angels 3-1. College football news, former Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleavin. And we know that's not how you pronounce his name, but that's how we're pronouncing it because it's funny. He is now strongly linked to UCLA. Don't know if it's official, but everyone's saying it will be. Yesterday was the first day of the spring transfer portal season opening. Former Alabama and Texas wide receiver Isaiah Bond. Remember last week he was the one who turned himself in after being accused of sexual assault. He is now suing the woman who is accusing him of sexual assault. He wants criminal charges. He wants financial retribution. And his agent being very aggressive with all 32 NFL teams. And remember the other freshman at Duke? That Canapel kid, averaged 14 points a game. Yeah, he's leaving Duke too. He's entering the draft. He's a projected lottery pick, somewhere around 8 to 10. PGA Tour, they're in two places this week. They got one of those $20 million events at Harbor Town where Scotty Scheffler's the defending champ. Then they got one of those $4 million events in Punta Cana, where I think Horschel's the defending champ. And we mentioned it a moment ago, but the Washington Commanders finalizing a deal with the District of Columbia. They're going to build a new stadium for themselves, and they're going to pay for $2.5 billion of the $3 billion. And it's going to be at the old RFK site. And at 7 minutes before the hour, that was the starting five. 5 big stories and a new stadium that you needed to know.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to nolanagency.com. That's 941-639-1122. or nolanagency.com.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Honey, you want to come out? I haven't seen you since Glass Doctor installed our custom shower enclosure.
No thanks.
Well, you can't keep eating breakfast in the shower, and laminating your magazines is getting expensive. You remember we have guests coming over tonight, right?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love to see the shower.
It's our neighbors, and I highly doubt they want to be hanging out in our bathroom.
The shower's so good, you'll never want to leave. Visit glassdoctor.com today and schedule an appointment online.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
We've got a text message for Dr. Dollar. I feel tired, sluggish, and just not myself. I'm gaining weight, my energy is low, and I've lost my drive. Could it be low testosterone?
Absolutely. Testosterone naturally declines over time, but you don't have to accept it. Low T can affect your energy, strength, mood, and focus. But here's the good news. Testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, can help restore your vitality and get you back to feeling your best. Imagine waking up strong, sharp, and energized, ready to take on the day like you used to. At Revitalize Clinic, we specialize in physician-guided, American-made TRT designed just for you.
Take control of your health today. Call Revitalize Clinic at 239-277-5770. Visit revitalizelounge.com or text Dr. Dollar directly at 239-980-2302. Feel like yourself again. Testosterone replacement therapy, because your best years aren't behind you, they're just getting started. Text Dr. Dollar now at 239-980-2302.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Yeah, that's apparently their thing, DC. DC, did you? I asked you, and I don't know if you answered, but what is it you want Congress to do? I know David came in and chimed in about Congress, but what is it you want Congress to do? I'm very curious. And just for the record, like, I'm not eating carbs all that much. The damage I could do with empanadas right now is scary. I think I could eat 6. I'm that hungry. And Moulton's going to start eating any second. It's going to drive me bat blank crazy. Thank you, Johnny. I'm going to have to get all new clothes pretty soon. Things just fall off. It's weird. And not one shot, not one pill, no Ozempic, no shots, no nothing. I did not see Sampson's tweet. Let me look. Oh my God, he's got all these.
You know what's funny? My wife actually made some tuna mac a few days ago. There's still like a bowl of it left. But I have not had tuna mac on the show in a while.
Oh, thank you.
Right, and I do that for Mark. By the way, first sign that my daughter was pregnant was my wife had just made tuna mac, and somehow, some way, she said something about, I'm getting, I got to go to the store and I got to, get Dad the ingredients for tuna mac. And my daughter went, "Ooh, really? Tuna mac?" And I'm like, oh, okay, she's got to be pregnant. When all of a sudden, tuna mac sounds appetizing.
So David, we play a game. Our golf game on Wednesdays is 2+. It's a net game. You got to count 2 on every hole. But if you,
Okay.
if you make 4 pars and everybody's getting a stroke, you're -4 on that hole. You get to count all of them. If you get to 12 under, you're pretty much going to win. I mean,
Okay.
you're pretty much a lock.
Right.
Yesterday, and that's just for 9. Yesterday on the front, we were 20 under.
Wow.
35, 37, 38, and 40. And the lowest handicap was the guy that shot the 40. Unbelievable.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floor Meister Studios. Floor Meisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Hour 2 of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday, a week out from the NFL draft, 2 days out from the full NBA and NHL playoffs. You could certainly argue the NBA playoffs have been underway the last 2 days with 4 play-in games, which have sent, 2 teams home, 2 teams into the playoffs, and now 4 more teams competing for the final 2 spots. Our poll question is, which set of playoffs are you more excited about, NBA or NHL? And we know there's a very anti-NBA thought surrounding our audience. But you got to get specific here also if you think about it. I mean, Mark, as you've mentioned a couple times now, we have an NHL playoffs without the Bruins, without the Rangers, without the Penguins, without the Wings. The first round matchups are Winnipeg, St. Louis, Vegas, Minnesota, Edmonton and Los Angeles for the 4th year in a row. So you're either excited because they've built something, or you're like, I've seen this already.
Yeah, you should be excited about that one. I mean, they played a 5-spit game a couple of days ago, and one team accused the other of sending their B team to hurt them.
Right.
And the other team responded with, what do you think we're supposed to do? And I mean, they're talking back and forth. They genuinely do not like one another. It should be a bloodbath.
And Edmonton, I believe, has won all 3 previous years when they've met in the playoffs. So it's time for the LA Kings to, get over the proverbial hump, if you will. And then Dallas, Colorado, which could be a Western Conference final, and yet they're meeting in the first round. But over in the East, I mean, Washington, Montreal, is that going to excite anybody? Toronto, Ottawa. Now, that'll excite people north of the border, but that going to do anything for folks in the States?
No.
Those teams haven't played in the playoffs in 21 years, by the way. You got Carolina, New Jersey. Now, you got Florida and Tampa Bay.
Where we are, it's a big deal, but I would ask the same question you asked about Toronto and Ottawa.
Right.
Outside of the Sunshine State, who gives a damn?
Now, the reason they should, though, I mean, if you're a hockey fan, is those are the 2 franchises that have represented the Eastern Conference the last 5 years in the finals. 2021-22 was the Lightning. 23 and 24 were the Panthers. I mean, if I told you right now, how shocking would it be to you, Mark, that the winner of the Tampa Bay, Florida series goes to the finals? And it won't be an easy road.
I wouldn't be shocked at all. And deep down, I can't believe I'm saying this out loud on a radio show, for that matter. I think the league's pulling for the Florida Panthers in the East. I think the Florida Panthers have the best shot to draw a number in the finals. I don't think it's Tampa. I think Washington would be a close second because of Ovechkin and the fact that he set the record in a year that his team would make a playoff run would be historic. But I'm really struggling to find the matchups that would produce any oxygen nationally.
Meanwhile, in the NBA, 6 of the 8 playoff series are known. But here's what you're looking at. Out west, Oklahoma City's waiting to see who wins tomorrow night between Dallas and Memphis. Which, I mean, Ja Morant as an 8 seed? Or how about Dallas? Trying to prove everybody wrong. I got to admit, if they had their guys healthy, I actually think it's a pretty good team. But they're far from healthy. But then Houston's got Golden State.
Where Golden State is the favorite, the betting favorite in the series. They're the 7 seed.
Right.
I mean, there's part of me that says, don't you just throw a couple of dollars on Houston thinking that Vegas is just toying with the betting public who's going to be all over Golden State.
I will say this. I love Houston game 1. I think Houston's going to be angry. Their coach is going to, former Celtics coach is their coach, and he's going to remind them every single day. He goes, the no respect card. And I think also those two teams don't like one another. They've actually gotten into it physically when they played during the regular season. I'll make you a prediction in that series, Mark. Draymond's ejected at least once.
Oh, I like that. Wonder if I can get a prop bet on that.
At least once. And I think there's a chance that he doesn't see the end of 2 games in that series. But Houston, Golden State, the Lakers and Minnesota, Denver and the Clippers. Now in the East, Cleveland's waiting to find out, are they going to play Trae Young and the Hawks, or are they going to play Miami? Okay. Boston's got Orlando. Orlando's actually an interesting team. Knicks in Detroit.
They don't shoot well enough to beat the Celtics. They could win a game or two, but they're long. They play really good defense.
Yep.
And they're a problem. The Celtics are going to win the series.
Yes.
But Orlando's a problem.
You got the Knicks in Detroit. And then you got Indiana and Milwaukee. That's your NBA TV playoff series right there. So, NBA or NHL playoffs? Which one has the better matchups? Any of them excite you? I went with NHL playoffs, even though my team's not in them, because I am so jacked for the Tampa Bay, Florida series. So jacked. What is this, 4th time in 6 years?
Yeah. I am as well. I went with hockey, but I'm telling you right now, by the time the second round of the NBA playoffs begin, particularly in the West, it's going to be very compelling because Oklahoma City's the clear favorite, obviously. After that, who Oklahoma City plays in the conference final, to me, is a 100% crapshoot. I could name 4 teams, 5 teams that I think could get there. So I do think that the West, beginning in round 2, becomes very intriguing. And the East, well, can we just get to Cleveland and Boston?
Oklahoma City reminds me of that team, and, name the sport in which they broke through this year. I mean, what they end up with, 68 wins? Something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's unbelievable. 68-14. And they're young. I mean, they got their guys locked up who they want locked up. And they got like 11 first-round picks in the next 7 years. They can afford to let guys go who they don't want to pay, and they can replace them on the cheap. I mean, this should be the beginning of a run. Mark, you came back from San Francisco 2014. Maybe it was fall of 2014, heading into 2015. And Golden State had made the playoffs the year before, lost in the first round. And you came back and you had some Warriors shirts and you said, the Warriors are coming.
It was actually 2012. Believe it or
Okay.
not. It was 2012 because it was my honeymoon.
Gotcha.
We got married in 2013 because we got married in 2012 and 2013. The summer we actually took our honeymoon. So it was the summer of 2013, and people were into the Warriors.
Yep.
We're in Napa Valley having dinner, and our waiter's into the game, and I started talking to him, and people were into it, and it started coming, and they had a decade plus of great success.
I mean, is Oklahoma City this year the Chiefs in 2018? When they hosted New England and lost in overtime of the AFC Championship game, but it was the harbinger of what has followed. Is Oklahoma City the Astros of what began an 8-year run?
They have stars on their team.
Their best player is the favorite to win the MVP.
Right. He shouldn't, but he's going to.
Agreed.
And as you mentioned, they have the young stars that are locked up. And it'll be they're poised for a run, but the West is pretty stacked. What can Golden State do with Jimmy Butler? Does playoff Jimmy come around, and do they upset Houston and make this incredibly interesting? The Clippers are healthy, have been playing terrific basketball for the last month and a half.
Right. If we said Kawhi Leonard is going to remain healthy throughout the playoffs, do you think of that team differently? And that team could play Oklahoma City in the second round.
So I think there's a lot of reasons. We think there are a lot of reasons to get excited about the NBA playoffs. We know a lot of you don't like the NBA, like this texter, 21,000 text line open, would love to hear from you. He says, I'm not looking as the teams who are missing. The NHL is just a better product than the NBA. Those of us that don't follow the NBA really don't care which teams are playing. I would say this. I think most of the people who bash the NBA, and you guys have proven me right on this, when's the last time you really watched? Because the players are pretty solid. The league is full of really good players right now. And they will play hard come playoff time.
And they will not shoot as many threes also in the playoffs. They'll still shoot too many of them, but they will not shoot as many. So this will be the best product the NBA can put together over the next 2 months. But it's also the best product the NHL can put together.
It is our poll question. Which playoffs are you more excited about, the NHL or the NBA? That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
This is Miller and Moulton.
DC, I look at I respect your opinions. I really do. I think you're a pretty smart sports fan. But to bitch about the NHL playoffs swallowing the whistles in 2025, that's fascinating to me because they actually call penalties in the playoffs. You know, whereas 20 years ago, they didn't call anything. Anything.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton. MillerandMoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Thanks so much for being with us. You know, the Gators were celebrating, Mark, a big recruiting win yesterday. And in theory, it sounds absurd. The Gators won a three-way battle with St. John's, and I forget who the third team was, for this guard from Princeton. Now, on paper, that sounds absurd, right? But it just goes to show how many good players there are all over the place. And now that those good players from all over the place can get these really great offers to spend their final year or two at a quote-unquote more prestigious, unquote, school. But remember, who just led the Gators to a natty? Some guard from Iona. So I'm going to be watching closely the kid from Princeton next year for the Gators.
Well, and this is where, David, I'll come back at something you said. I'm not talking about Big East teams, okay? Because they're not mid-majors. This is where the demise of the mid-major is coming. Because they can't, Princeton ain't going to be able to keep that kid. They don't have the money to do that.
Nope.
And the same thing with Drake and Grand Canyon and any mid-major school out there that's trying to make a name for themselves because they can't keep these kids. St. John's, Kansas, and Florida are coming after a 21-year-old Princeton guard. Princeton ain't keeping that guy. Now, they may get the UCF kid who's transferring down because of playing time, but they're not going to get the same quality player coming down than the one they developed that's going up.
No, and the mid-major is starting to, not only in players but coaches, they're starting to raid the JUCOs and the D2s.
Yeah, what was it? Lipscomb signed a D2 coach.
Yes.
Because their coach left.
And the guy they signed actually had ties to their former coach and I think had been an assistant with them at Lipscomb. But yeah, he was just a very successful Division II coach. And so they hired him. And also, interestingly enough, the Lipscomb coach leaves to go to Sanford, not Stanford of the ACC, but Sanford. But he left because Sanford had a much bigger NIL budget than Lipscomb. And he goes, going forward, going to be a lot easier to win here than it's going to be at Lipscomb. And that's the stuff that we have to, figure out. Who are going to be the diamonds in the rough financially that are actually hoarding resources where, if just two guys, can you be that small school that can get two guys?
And what will be interesting to me, David, and help me, the school that basically said we're not playing D1. They just qualified for the tournament and said they're done.
Well, it's not Robert Morris, was it? No, the Northeast school.
Yeah, it was, and the name escapes me, but they basically, with this whole house settlement of the $21 million.
St. Francis.
Thank you, St. Francis.
Right.
So how many other schools like St. Francis are there going to be when they decide that $21.8 million is what you have to spend or can spend through this new house deal? What happens when schools say we're not spending it? What do they do then? How many programs are going to be cut at schools because they're just not willing to pay for them anymore because the only things they want to pay for are football and basketball. How many schools just say, we can't compete anymore? We're not participating. Like Max Crosby just signed as the VP of football administration for Eastern Michigan.
Right. Assistant GM, basically, of Eastern Michigan. Yeah.
I would question why Eastern Michigan even plays Division I football. I've questioned it for over 20 years. But what's in it for Eastern Michigan to spend that kind of money?
We've talked about this. I mean, now St. Francis dropped all the way from D1 to D3. And I will say, like in football, you can drop from FBS to FCS and save 20 scholarships. And obviously, you're paying a lot less money for your guys at the FCS level than you are at the FBS level. So you can save millions, but yet still play a fairly high level of football and compete for championships if that's really important to you as a school. Can't do it in the other sports. You're either D1 or you're not. There is no mid-level. And that's a problem.
Closer to home. USF. We think that if the ACC implodes, that South Florida would be a candidate for the ACC. They have a brand new football stadium coming. What's their ceiling if they don't get into a power conference?
Whew. Do they have enough money to pull an SMU?
I don't think so. I mean, SMU belongs in its own league with the money they
have. I love what SMU's doing. SMU's like, oh, wait, it's all about money? Well, damn, we've got a ton of it.
The only small school out there that I think could pull this off is Liberty. Liberty has the cash and can get more.
Don't disagree. Their golf and tennis teams are already flying private on occasion to their matches. So, I mean, we're seemingly more than halfway there.
So I just wonder when I look at USF and the new stadium and, looks like they've hired the right coach. They had the right coach in basketball. And unfortunately, he died unexpectedly before the season began this year.
They were given, however, great reviews of the gentleman that they just hired to replace him, the guy from Arkansas State. So hopefully it continues to work out for them there. But they're on the outside looking in. And how long can you afford to be on the outside looking in?
And this investment that they're making in a new stadium clearly says we want to be a part of the big boy group. But outside of building that stadium, do they have the financial ability to buy themselves into a conference? It looks as if the ACC will be stable for a couple of more years. So when would that ever happen, that we'd get another round of expansion? It is a risky gamble that they're taking with this new stadium, and they feel it's the only way to compete. But will they ever be able to?
Miller and Moulton. Our poll question: NBA, NHL playoffs begin in earnest Saturday. Which one are you more excited about? Hockey or hoops? Go to that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X, and vote accordingly.
Who's going to be the Steeler quarterback? Are they going to draft one or not and try to sign Aaron Rodgers? We'll talk with Ray Fittipaldo next and see what he says about the upcoming draft for the Pittsburgh Steelers on Miller and Moulton.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to nolanagency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or nolanagency.com. American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Wine glasses never fall over until you get a brand new rug.
Oh no!
Ketchup bottles act normal till you're wearing a new shirt.
Oh, you kidding me?
And rocks lie peacefully on the road till the day you get a brand new windshield. Then they fly up off the road and attack without mercy. That's why new windshields from Glass Doctor come with our windshield protection plan. Unlimited repairs and one replacement for 12 months. Don't just fix it, protect it. Glass Doctor. A neighborly company.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Clark on YouTube, are you the same Clark that's Realtor Clark that disappeared from Twitch chat after the Chiefs lost in the Super Bowl? Ambient, I came really close to helping out my school once. And then they had a little problem with this medical doctor who was molesting people. And I'll never give them a dime. Ever.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
22 minutes until the top of the hour. Our poll question's an easy one, with the NBA and NHL playoffs beginning in full this weekend. Which one you more fired up for, hockey or hoop? At Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X. Ray Fittipaldo covers the Steelers. Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He's very easy to follow on X. Ray Fit with 2 T's and the number 1. Ray Fit 1 is how you follow Ray, who joins us once again on the American Paint Supplies Hotline, your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. Ray, I hope life is going well. How are you?
Oh, good morning, guys. I'm doing well.
Is there an understanding between Rodgers and the Steelers, or is this still legitimately a mystery?
I think it's still legitimately a mystery. And I don't think any other player in the NFL could just disappear and pull this off. But, Aaron Rodgers doesn't have a lot of, people surrounding him. He's pretty much, on his own. I think, he and probably his reps are the only ones who really knows what he's thinking. So I've stopped trying to guess. People thought it might be last week when the Pat McAfee show was in Pittsburgh, and Aaron is always on that show. So people thought, oh, maybe he'll announce it at the show in Pittsburgh. That didn't happen. Now people are pointing towards the draft. Is that a soft deadline for the Steelers? So if you're the Steelers, you've waited this long. I guess you can wait a little while longer, but at some point, right after the draft, pretty much the off-season program is going to begin. And you would think by that point, they would want an answer from Rodgers one way or the other.
Well, if it's still a mystery, then heading into the draft, quarterback has to be a need. But to go up and get one, I mean, it seems like Pittsburgh would have to sit and wait patiently. Without a second-round pick, how much leverage does Pittsburgh have if they want to go up and try to get a Shedeur Sanders and, get ahead of New Orleans, perhaps? Or is it something that they really just don't have the draft capital to pull off next Thursday?
Yeah, they don't have the draft capital this year to pull it off, but they were not very active in free agency this year, and they had a lot of free agents sign elsewhere, so they're going to have a lot of third-round comp picks next year, which I think a lot of people here are saying, okay, next year is the year, 2026 quarterback class, much better than this quarterback class. And I think that's probably where the Steelers are going to get their next franchise quarterback, they hope. But, I mean, you're right. As long as Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson are the only quarterbacks on this roster, you can't roll out, Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart at 21 if they fall. I still think it's probably going to be like a third or a fourth round pick. Louisville's Tyler Shuck has been in for a pre-draft visit. The Steelers were at Ohio State's Pro Day. The scout Will Howard. Those guys are probably going to go off the board third or fourth round. So I think even if Aaron Rodgers does not sign, I think the Steelers would be okay starting Mason Rudolph this year, drafting a guy like Howard or Shuck, and then pointing towards 2026 when Arch Manning and some of these other guys who are projected to be better prospects are available.
Fan base going to be okay with that? Okay, I mean, you said the Steelers may be content with that. Is that going to play?
With the fan base, I honestly, guys, they've been a team that's like 9-10 wins, get the doors blown off in the playoffs like the last 8 years. They're getting to the playoffs, but no one in Pittsburgh in the fan base thinks this team is a Super Bowl contenders, whether Aaron Rodgers is here or not. So believe it or not, there are a lot of people in Pittsburgh who were like, start Mason Rudolph, get us a top 10 pick. We got the ammunition. Let's go get our franchise quarterback. And let's get back to a point where we don't have to worry about the quarterbacks. So, from 2004 till 2021, they were always a Super Bowl contender because they had Ben Roethlisberger. And, there were only a couple of other teams in the league that could say that. Tom Brady and the Patriots were in that same boat. Manning and the Colts, Manning and the Broncos when he went to the Broncos. You're a lucky franchise when you have one of those top 3 or the 5 players in the league. And, you hate to say it, but, that's the same case now. And, Kansas City is going to be a contender no matter what. Buffalo is going to be a contender no matter what. Cincinnati, if they can ever get their act together in the front office, they're going to be a contender no matter what because they got Joe Burrow. The Steelers and like 75% of the other teams in the NFL aren't in that boat, and until they get that quarterback, I don't know that they're going to be a serious contender.
So let's just say they pass on quarterback in the first round. They've gone offensive line the last 2 years. I don't know how well that's worked out for either of the tackles that they've picked, but I don't know if a tackle is going to be there at 21. Defensive line's an area. Cam Hayward's not getting any younger. There's a good crop of D tackles in this draft. If you're picking at 21 and it's not a quarterback, where would you go, Ray?
Yeah, I think it's defensive line because you mentioned that Cam Hayward's coming off an all-pro season, but he's going to turn 36 next month. They don't have a starting 3 technique. They let Larry Ogunjobi go. He was released last month, so they need another starter next to Hayward. So, they like Derek Harmon from Oregon. He was in for a pre-draft visit. Kenneth Grant from Michigan.
There we go.
Could be an option for them there. Walter Nolan from Mississippi. I think all those guys are probably going to be in that range. I don't know if all 3 will be available, but I do think if one of those guys is available, they'll probably go D-line. But listen, they brought in 9 running backs for pre-draft visits, including North Carolina's Omarion Hampton. So they let Najee Harris go. Running back is a big need. I know a lot of people don't think that a guy like Hampton would be a play at 21, but I think he could be. So right now I'm thinking D-line or Omarion Hampton if he's still there at number 21.
How much in play is moving down? Like, let's just say the Chiefs call, and there is one tackle that has slipped. And we all know the Chiefs desperately need to grab a tackle. And the Chiefs call and want to move up 10 spots, and the Steelers don't have a second-round pick, and there are other things they can do. How realistic do you think it is if, somebody 29 through 32, or for that matter, one of the teams that has a handful of early second-round picks wants to move back in for a quarterback? Do you think Omar would trade out?
I think this is a great year to trade back because I don't know if there's any real superstars in this class other than maybe Travis Hunter and maybe one or other two guys, who might go in the top 5, Abdul Carter, another one. But this is just really a solid draft overall where there's probably not a lot of difference between the number 15 prospect and, the number 45 prospect. So if Omar can do that, I think he would. The issue is if you trade back 10 spots, there's pretty much got to be 10 players available that you would feel comfortable with. So that's the only drawback there. But I'm with you. Like if you can get back into the second round, if you're the Steelers, they got a whole bunch of needs. I mean, cornerback is still a need for this team. They signed Darius Slay, who's 34, to be a starter this year. That's going to be an issue next year if they don't address it this year. Safety could be, a position they need next year as well because Minkah Fitzpatrick is coming to the end of his deal. So this roster, while you have some stars like T.J. Watt and Minkah Fitzpatrick and Cam Hayward, a lot of these guys, if they're not at the end of their careers, they're at the end of their contracts, and there's a lot of holes to fill. So I do think that would be a good idea if they could find a trading partner. And I think you're on the right track there with KC because tackle is a huge need for them.
It is a huge need for KC, but if I'm Pittsburgh, I'm not answering that phone call with KC. I'd rather hear from the Giants or Cleveland that want to come get a quarterback because their second-round pick's a hell of a lot higher. I don't know if I want to pick 31st in the second round. But now that the Steelers signed Metcalf, what do you think that means for Pickens? Does that mean he's going to learn from a pro, or does that mean he's expendable?
I think he's expendable. It's interesting. If you let George Pickens play out the last year of his contract and he becomes a free agent and signs elsewhere, you're going to get a 2027 comp pick for him. So the only way you're going to deal George Pickens now is if you get a second or third round pick. So I think he's a great talent, but the acquiring team also knows that he's a little bit of a pain in the butt for whatever team is going to acquire him in a trade. So that's the drawback there. Yeah, I mean, listen, if they can get a second round pick for George Pickens in this draft, I think they would do it. If things go south during the season, they could deal him. It's a trade deadline, but it is nice on paper going into this season. If Aaron Rodgers signs, it is nice to know that you have George Pickens, DK Metcalf, Pat Freiermuth a tight end, and either Roman Wilson or Calvin Austin serving as your number 3. That's a pretty decent receiving core if you stack it up against some of the other teams in the NFL. It's not the Bengals. The Bengals have Chase and Higgins, so it's not like a top 5 receiver tandem, but you could argue, it might be a top 10 receiver tandem. And, if Aaron Rodgers does sign, that could be pretty entertaining to watch if all those guys can get on the same page.
Talking Steelers with Ray Fittipaldo because he covers them for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Follow Ray on X, Ray Fit with 2 T's, the number 1, Ray Fit 1. Ray, it just seems as if the Steelers are caught in the middle. They're good enough to make the playoffs. They're not good enough to win when they get there. If Aaron Rodgers decides to sign with them, they're probably good enough to make the playoffs. Maybe they can actually win a game, but winning more than that would be a big ask. But if he doesn't sign with them, we've just rattled through the really good players on their roster whose contracts are all up in a year or two and who are approaching 30 or in their 30s. I mean, there's a part of me, Ray, that thinks the Steelers probably would have been better off dumping their best players, trying to find that quarterback in the next 2 years, because the Watts and the Fitzpatricks and the Haywards of the world aren't going to be on the roster the next time they've got a good young quarterback and they're ready to contend.
There's a lot of people in Pittsburgh among the fan base who feel the exact same way. The Steelers do not usually do that, though.
Right.
T.J. Watt, they look at him like, even though he hasn't won in the postseason, doesn't have a Super Bowl, they view him in the same vein as they do some of those great Steelers defenders of the past. Troy Polamalu spent his entire career with Pittsburgh. Even go back to the 70s, Joe Green, Mel Blount. That's how they view T.J. Watt. So they, deep in their hearts, do not want to do that. And I don't think they would. But you're right. If you look at it from a team-building perspective, allocation of your resources, if they pay T.J. Watt $40 million a year over, say, a 4 or 5 year contract, what is that going to get you in the end if you don't have a quarterback? So you're right. It's a big topic among the fans here. I just don't think the way the Rooneys do business that's necessarily in play right now for T.J. Watt.
Ray Fittipaldo, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Follow him on X. He's going to be pumping out a lot of material. He already does, but obviously in the next 10 days, a ton of material. Ray Fit with 2 T's, the number 1. Ray Fit 1. Ray, as always, appreciate your time and your insights. Safe travels, and hopefully we can catch up after, the draft and everything dies down.
Sounds good, Mark. Thanks for having me on.
Ray Fittipaldo, kind enough to join us here on Miller and Moulton.
He's actually staying home for the draft. We talked a little bit before the interview. He's not going to Green Bay, which I would be excited if I were Ray to not go to Green Bay. But they're having the draft in Pittsburgh next year. So he said the Post-Gazette sending out a business reporter to kind of capture the essence of the draft. The draft will be a home run in Pittsburgh.
Wow. Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Think of all the teams that are in close proximity that can make that trip. That, the fan base is just in their division. The whole East Coast is close. The Detroits, the Green Bays, the Indianapolises are all relatively close. It will be a home run, and it will look spectacular on television. That will look good.
And there will be an awful lot of food consumed.
And beer drank.
Yes.
Iron City Lights on me, boys. Get after it. But when you brought up Kansas City, I think it's a realistic trade. It's one I wouldn't do. To get back in the second round to have pick 31, I think I can do better, if you know what I mean.
Oh, okay. So it's not just you don't want to help the Chiefs. It's that you don't think it helps you enough.
No, but pick 31 in the second round. I mean, they'd have to give up more than that to move up 10 spots. A hell of a lot more than that for me.
Okay. All right. Miller and Moulton. We'll talk Vikings next hour. But coming up next, Mike Luchene will talk the draft in its entirety. So all the teams and players are in play with Mike Luchene next on Miller and Moulton. Miller and Moulton would like to thank the sponsors that, quite frankly, saved the show in 2024. Whether it was Floor Meisters, American Paint Supplies, Glass Doctor, Molly Maid, Cigar Bar, Sleep Treatment Direct, the Diamond District, and even the Cape Coral Police Department, thank you. We're hopeful of a great 2025, still needing sponsors, so reach out to Miller and Moulton via X at that Mark Miller or the David Moulton, or text us at 21,000. But Miller and Moulton says thank you to our sponsors and to you, our loyal listeners.
Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. They are helping me with sleep apnea. And by helping me, I mean curing me. No more CPAP machine. No more snoring. No more tossing. No more waking up exhausted. Their expert team got me the right treatment, fast and hassle-free. If you want to feel energized and get rid of your snoring, call Sleep Treatment Direct today. 444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound. American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Floormeisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
We've got a text message for Dr. Dollar. A few of my friends are taking daily Cialis or Viagra. What are the benefits and how much does it cost?
Great question. Cialis, Tadalafil, and Viagra, Sildenafil are game changer for men who want better performance, stamina, and confidence. They improve blood flow, support long-lasting performance, and help you feel like yourself again. And the best part, at Revitalize Clinic, we make it affordable. Less than $1 per pill. No overpriced prescription, no hassle, just real results, American-made, at the best prices in town. Plus, with early hours starting at 5:30 in the morning, we fit your schedule.
Take control of your health today. Call Revitalize Clinic at 239-277-5770. Visit revitalizelounge.com or text Dr. Dollar directly at 239-980-2302. That's 239-980-2302. Get results. Get confidence. Revitalize Clinic, because every man deserves to perform at his best without breaking the bank. Text Dr. Dollar now at 239-980-2302.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Dan, I'm kind of with you, but they've spent a lot of draft picks the last 2 years on their O-line. They think that the one guy was not healthy last year, so that's their thought. But I'm with you. They've got a really young line that's not proven a damn thing. From what I'm seeing, Feeney, third round. I have no idea to whom. When you start talking about third-round guys, who's taken one already, who's left? Irish football, I've got to ask you a serious question, because what Ray said is having one of the top 3 to 5 quarterbacks in the league. I want to know where you honestly would rank Nick's right now, 1 to 32 starting quarterbacks. Where do you think he is? You're high, Irish football. High.
I think Quinn Ewers will go late third round.
Mike is ready and fired up.
Good.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floor Meister Studios. Floor Meisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
Halfway home in the 239 and the 904 is Miller and Moulton. Final hour of the show in Live Oak, Lake City and surrounding areas, Port Charlotte, Venice and surrounding areas. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. Our poll question today, we're 48 hours away from the NBA and NHL playoffs beginning in earnest. Enough of this play-in stuff. Which you're more geeked up about, hockey or hoop? Vote at that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X. Our draft preview a week out continues with Mike Luchene. He is outstanding, one of the very best at accurately projecting where guys are going to go in the draft. Follow Mike and his work at NFLRoughDraft.com and follow Mike on X at NFL Rough Draft. Mike, it's David and Mark. Good morning. How are you?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great this morning. We're a week from the draft. I mean, you know, you got the NHL playoffs going on down there with the Lightning. It's a great time of the year.
Yes, it is. Now, I'm curious. This is a draft where there are considered to be less great players. Does this draft make your job more difficult than usual?
You know, I don't really see it that way. I think you've got some good players at the top of the draft, and certainly there are some positions that are a little bit weaker than they usually are. Like if you look at the offensive line, you know, offensive tackles a lot weaker than it normally is. Will Campbell's got, 32.5-inch or 33-inch arms, depending on whether or not you go by the combine measurements or his pro day. You know, usually you have, a little bit of a more blue chip offensive tackle at the top of the draft. But, there are a lot of positions where it works out great. Like, you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, for example, you guys need an edge rusher. I've got 19 edge rushers that I think could go in the top 3 rounds. I don't really see it as a weak draft. And I do see, some big time talent at the top of the board. You've got Hunter and Carter. And then, I think part of the problem, part of the reason why some people think that there aren't a lot of great players at the top of the draft is just because Ashton Genty's a running back and, you've got Tyler Warren and Loveland, the tight ends. They don't really play premium positions. And, so it's tough to spend a top 6 or 10 pick on a running back or tight end, but they're still great players.
Is this everybody wants their team now to trade back. Let's trade back and acquire more picks. And the points that you made about edge rushers going into the 3rd round, there are plenty of them. When you've got teams like Minnesota and Pittsburgh without 2nd-round picks, I'm sure they would love to trade out of their spots and acquire more picks. Who's going to want to trade up in this draft, in your opinion?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And you're right. Fans always want their teams to trade down, acquire more picks. And that's not always possible because, as you mentioned, you need somebody who's going to be willing to move up. When I look at who might be willing to do that, I actually think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers down there are in a great spot to potentially move down. So you guys are picking at 19. You've got the Pittsburgh Steelers picking at 21. So, I don't know if these quarterbacks are going to fall. I'm starting to think that they will. Obviously, Cam Ward's going 1 to the Titans. Maybe you get Jackson Dart 9 to the Saints. But if Dart or Shedeur Sanders start to fall, now all of a sudden you're Tampa Bay, you're Jason Light, the GM there, and you're on the clock at 19. You could have the Cleveland Browns and the New York Giants looking to move up from the 2nd round to jump ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers at 21. These are organizations, speaking of the Browns and the Giants, where their GMs and their head coaches are probably not going to be drafting next year. They're going to be fired if they can't find some progress at the quarterback position. And, I know the Giants signed Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston, but, are those quarterbacks who are really going to save someone's job? I don't really know about that. So you might actually get a good deal if you're Tampa Bay or the Broncos at 20 with somebody looking to move ahead of the Steelers for one of those quarterbacks like Shedeur Sanders.
We have a few Broncos fans that are very active in our Twitch chat room, and they want an offensive skill player. They're curious. Do you think Genty is a lock to the Raiders at 6, or how far will he fall? Is there a wide receiver they need to go get and not wait for at 20? What do you think is going to happen to Denver at 20 in this draft?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's another reason why I think that Tampa Bay is a good candidate to move down at 19, because everything I've heard connects the Broncos at 20 to, like you said, an offensive skill position player. So I don't know if they'd be willing to move down. Now, you mentioned Genty. I don't think he's a lock at 6 to the Raiders. It wouldn't absolutely shock me if he went before the Raiders. I mean, everybody's got Mason Graham penciled into the Jaguars, and Mason Graham makes a lot of sense, a defensive tackle from Michigan. But, it wouldn't shock me with Liam Cohn there, new GM, if they took a running back there. And then if the Raiders pass on Genty, I think, you've got the Bears, you've got the Cowboys. Certainly, if you're a Broncos fan, you're going to have to move up in the draft if you want him. But then you've got Amarian Hampton, the running back from North Carolina, and Travion Henderson, the running back out of Ohio State. They could both be sitting there. One of them could be sitting there at 20, as well as, maybe one of the tight ends. I think Tyler Warren is probably favored to go ahead of Loveland from Michigan, but, you could certainly see one of those two sitting there at 20 for the Broncos if they get a little bit lucky. And then you mentioned wide receiver. Well, that's right around the range where I expect the receivers to start coming off the board. If you're looking at first-round receivers, you've got Matthew Golden and you've got Tet McMillan from Arizona, and they're very different. You've got Golden as kind of like the field stretcher, and he's a little bit of a better route runner. Golden from the University of Texas, by the way, and then McMillan's kind of the bigger guy, who's more of the contested catches type receiver. So, certainly one of those two guys is going to be sitting there on the board at 20. So Denver should have some options. I don't think they're getting Genty, but, one of those other players I mentioned would make a lot of sense for them at 20.
You mentioned the receiver group, and it doesn't look like there are a lot of first-round grades on receiver. But as you get deeper in the draft on day 2, who do you like that could be a gem? I know a lot of people like these two guys from Iowa State. It looks like there's more depth at receiver, maybe not first-round talent, but there's a lot of guys coming off the board day 2.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Now, you mentioned the Iowa State players. I know a lot of people like Jalen Noel. He's kind of the smaller slot type receiver. I'm higher on Jaden Higgins. He's your taller X receiver, and he moves. He's a smooth mover for a big guy. I've actually got him ahead of Luther Burden from Missouri. A lot of people have it. So after those first two that I mentioned, McMillan and Golden, a lot of people kind of feel like Burden and Emeka Ibuka from Ohio State will be the next to come off the board. And, you're looking at about the end of the first round, the beginning of the second round. For me, that tier is Ibuka and Jaden Higgins. I think he's just going to be a steal in the second round. And then I've got Burden after him. Then there are a bunch of quality day 2. And, some of these day 2 receivers are even going to fall to day 3. So, we mentioned Noel, the other receiver from Iowa State. You've got Isaiah Bond from Texas. I know he's got that situation that just popped up last week, but, there's information coming out that the accusation made against him might not be a credible accusation. So, certainly if teams feel comfortable with Isaiah Bond, the other Texas receiver, the field stretcher, he's probably a second-round pick. You've got Jack Besh, right? Jack Besh went to the Senior Bowl from TCU. It reminds me a lot of Puka Nacua. And, he was just, I think he was Senior Bowl MVP, as a matter of fact. He's probably a late second or a third-round pick. And then you've got some other guys in the third round, like Trey Harris, if you need, sort of the possession type receiver. The only knock on him is, he's got to stay healthy. You've got Jalen Royals from Utah State, who just, he's had a great college career. He's a really smooth mover. I think he ran a 4.42 40. And then you've got a couple other guys. I'll just rattle off some guys who probably go in that range.
Okay. Well, we're pressed for time, Mike.
It's kind of,
We're pressed for time, so if I could move on. You mentioned Dart at 9 to the Saints. Is that because Sanders, you think, is already going to be drafted, or do you think that Sanders is going to fall that much?
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to happen with quarterbacks. We've seen that, right? I mean, we see it every year. But I personally think Sanders is falling. I think that, when you get to around Tampa's pick, that's about the range where you're going to start to see some teams have some interest in moving up for him. It would surprise me a little bit if he fell all the way out of the first round, only because I mentioned Andrew Berry from Cleveland and, Joe Shane from the Giants. They both need solutions at quarterback, and they need them now because, they're sort of on this is 2025 is kind of their last chance as GMs.
When you look at Will Johnson, the Michigan corner, I wouldn't draft him. He didn't run the 40. He was hurt. You don't know what his 40 time is. And I worry about a guy that only played 4 games last year. I know he has all the intangibles. He'll be a first-round pick. Do you trust it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I mean, you're right. He worked out the other day. He didn't run the 40. There's only one reason why you don't run the 40, right? If you're a cornerback and you're working out. So he knew that he was going to run high 4.5s. And that's a problem because at cornerback, that's the one position where the 40-yard dash really matters. He's fallen out of the top 10 or 11. I would take a shot on him personally once you're looking at, the middle of the first round. He's still such a good playmaker. I mean, you look at his ball production from his just a couple of years, really. I mean, he missed so much of last year at Michigan that, I think he's still got a chance to be a really good pro. But, certainly at this point, I think there's a chance that Maxwell Hairston from Kentucky goes ahead of him.
A lot of folks mentioning now Will Johnson to the Dolphins at 13 after the Jalen Ramsey news of the last 48 hours. He's Mike Luchene, all right? He is one of the best at projecting accurately where guys are going to be drafted. Follow Mike on X at NFL Rough Draft. Admire his work at NFLRoughDraft.com. Mike, thanks for making time for us. Hopefully we can check in again right after the draft.
Hey, anytime, guys. I appreciate you having me on, and, enjoy the draft.
Mike Luchene joining us here on Miller and Moulton. Thanks for listening.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to NolanAgency.com. That's 941-639-1122. or NolanAgency.com.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
This is Miller and Moulton.
The verdict is still out on that, Larry. I don't know yet.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour on this Thursday, a week out from the NFL draft. We have 3 guests booked on the show today, all having to do with the draft. Ray Fittipaldo joined us last hour to talk Steelers. Mike Luchene just joined us to talk the draft as a whole. Bob Sansevere, who covers the Vikings, will join us coming up in a little more than 15 minutes. A team very likely to trade out at 24, considering they have less than a handful of picks in this entire draft. You would think they would want to trade down and acquire more picks. Our poll question, NBA, NHL playoffs, both getting underway in full this weekend. Which are you more geeked up for? Hoop or hockey? That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X. Hey, I got a question for you.
All right, I'll see if I can answer it.
The rumor coming out of South Florida as to why all these guys are bailing on the Dolphins is they're not enamored with Tua. And I didn't think anything of it. I thought that was crap. But when Chris Greer was asked to mention who the leaders of the team were, since he's lost 4 captains from last year, and when they trade Jalen Ramsey, that's 5 of the guys that actually walked out to the logo during the course of the season that will no longer be with the team. And he didn't mention his quarterback. Do you think Chris Greer just had a bad minute? Or do you think something's going on inside that organization where people are losing faith in their franchise quarterback.
Well, I certainly hope that Greer hasn't lost faith in his franchise quarterback, because he's the one that signed him to a lengthy extension with a lot of money. I would hope that he just screwed up. But it's tough to say. I'll put it this way. Does Chris Greer know what a leader is? Because Chris Greer also said that Tyreek Hill was a leader on that team.
Well, and that's furthering the Tua noise, because Chris Greer was clearly struggling to mention potential leaders on the team. And he gets in his mental Rolodex to Tyreek Hill before he gets to Tua? I mean, that's why some of the noise is what some of the noise is this week. That people think the organization's not going anywhere, in part because they don't think the quarterback can take them anywhere.
And if they don't think the quarterback can take them anywhere, isn't that then an indictment on the coach? Because the coach is all in the Tua camp, or at least has appeared to be over the past couple of years. So to me, are the players not enamored with Tua, or are the players not enamored with Mike McDaniel? And I think the latter is more of a problem than the former.
So some of the noise, and let's face it, it happens in any relationship, any business, when all of a sudden people start acting differently, when what they're saying doesn't make sense, when they start making big decisions that are totally counter to the big decisions they were making just 12 months ago. I mean, we all at the very least go, if not start openly questioning, well, do you think it's because of so-and-so? I've heard it could be, so-and-so and such and such. And some of that's coming out of South Florida right now.
And the other side of what's coming out of South Florida is just now how important this draft is to Chris Greer. The number of spots that are need spots for the Miami Dolphins is nearly as high as teams like Carolina and the Giants that are picking very early in the draft. I mean, where is it outside of receiver, David, that Miami doesn't have a need?
And the funny thing is, I could argue they actually have a need at receiver. It may not be till next year, but that this is Tyreek's last year, and I don't know if they're sold on who their number 3 receiver is. I know they signed somebody in free agency, but I know what you're saying. They've got 6 other needs that jump out at you before a third receiver jumps out at you. Mark, they need to have a draft. Remember when the Rams went all those years without a first-round pick? But that front office just kept nailing 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks.
And I'll even go more recent.
Nailing them.
That draft that Brad Holmes had a couple of years ago for the Lions, when they got Gibbs and they got the Campbell, the linebacker, and they got the defensive back there, and all of them contributed early. I believe Miami has to have that kind of draft.
Agreed.
And if they don't, then Greer's done to me.
Well, the funny thing is, I believe Greer's going to be done anyway, but for the future of the organization, that Dolph fans need to look back and go, yeah, we got rid of Chris, but boy, that last draft of his, like the Giants had a infamous draft in their history in which I forget if it was 07 or 2011, but I think it was 07. It was Jerry Reese's first draft as general manager. And Mark, every player he drafted played meaningfully on that Super Bowl team. I mean, can't ask for more out of a draft. And you're right. The Dolphins need 4 starters, to be brutally honest with you.
And they've got 2 fourth-round picks. They've got to hit on one of those. Whether it's the third receiver you're talking about in the 4th round, whether they find a guard there.
A safety.
Right.
Yeah. They've got real needs. I mean, I could argue they need 2 safeties and now they need a corner and a safety at the very least. They need a swing tackle and a starting guard at the very least. You know, where else you want to go?
They need to be tougher on the defensive line.
They need 2 defensive tackles. They should, in theory, be able to get after the passer. They should. Between Chop Robinson and then all the guys coming back who were hurt. All right. They should get 50 sacks this year. If they don't, they're totally messed up, their chances for this year. But the Dolphins should be able to get after the quarterback if they can put opposing offenses in a position where they can attack the quarterback.
Because you can run on the Miami Dolphins.
Yep.
In the middle, they're soft. And that's something I would rather see them go D-tackle with. And I know the D-tackle crop is pretty good, and they might be able to get one on day 2. And maybe it's just me, but I'm telling you right now that Will Johnson to the Dolphins scares the hell out of me. A guy that was hurt a lot, who's not ready to run a 40, or if he is, he's too slow to run it. I wouldn't take him. Hope I'm wrong for his sake.
I know we're pressed for time. Bob Sansevere's coming up. Question, if you're the Dolphins, Shedeur Sanders starts dropping. How far are you willing to drop down? You're at 13.
I'd want to stay in the top 20, but I like where your head's at.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. They are helping me with sleep apnea. And by helping me, I mean curing me. No more CPAP machine. No more snoring. No more tossing. No more waking up exhausted. Their expert team got me the right treatment, fast and hassle-free. If you want to feel energized and get rid of your snoring, call Sleep Treatment Direct today. 444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and sound.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
This is Miller and Moulton.
I'm with you, Greek God. That's why it scares the hell out of me. Bob is set.
Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
At 22 minutes before the hour, a reminder, our poll question, with the NBA and NHL playoffs beginning in earnest this weekend. Which one are you more geeked up for, hockey or hoop? Go to that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X, and vote. He's been a big deal in the Twin Cities as a talk show host and a writer for quite a while. He's Bob Sansevere. He's part of the BS show, and he writes the BS blog. You can follow Bob on X at Bob Sansevere, Sansevere. Bob, it's David and Mark. Good morning. How are you?
Well, good morning, David. Good morning, Mark. How are you guys doing? And I do know that there are, you do have Viking fans down there. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest Viking fans spent the weekend in Miami. Chuck Foreman, who's a good friend, and I do a show with him called the Jim Bob Sports Jamboree, was in Miami visiting some old friends. And I think you probably had your spring game going on, and also I think you had your Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame dinner might have been going on as well.
Well, the funny thing is, I remember when this is a while ago, when I was working in Fargo, and Chuck was driving a truck for a living, and he actually called in to my midday show as he was driving across, I think, I-94 in the upper Midwest. So, Chuck Foreman, who should get a lot more consideration for the Hall of Fame than what he has gotten. But, Bob, can we address just a hot rumor? Is there anything at all to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is still desperately clinging to wanting to be a Viking?
This thing came out, SI had something about it, and everyone's talking about it. I got to be honest, I have been against the whole Aaron Rodgers to the Vikings thing. But if he is that, first of all, as a media person, I would love it to happen because it's great news. It would be great fodder. I mean, they'd have to put so many restrictions on him. I don't think once he actually got a contract and got into the building that he would honor any of them. I don't think he would be out there, I'll only be here a year. I will mentor J.J. McCarthy. Let's make the run. He's not going to be able to keep himself off of, going on podcasts and just saying things that I don't think this team can handle what the tornado that he would be and how disruptive he might be in the locker room. Look what he did. Okay, he goes into the Jets. He cost the head coach, the interim head coach, and the GM their jobs. Now, Kevin O'Connell is going to be safe, but Quasey may not be. When he starts demanding that he bring in some of his ex-buddies. So I think he does have one ex-teammate here, that Aaron Jones, the running back. So that would be a big plus for him, to have someone like Jones here. But I don't know that there's any receivers left that he can try to say, hey, bring them in, or that they could get. So I don't think it's good. I think it would have happened now if it was going to happen. Maybe they're waiting till after the draft. I have been thinking for weeks, the more likely scenario is once the draft is over, that they put together a deal with Atlanta to get Kirk Cousins, where Atlanta does have to pick up a good part of that salary and bring him back. And if you're Cousins, why would you want to be a backup in Atlanta when you could come here and you got a guy coming off of the injury and potentially be the starting quarterback here in a system that you already know? That's the one thing that's weird about this, that you do have McCarthy coming off the knee injury, and you think they'd want to have protect. They've got nothing. They got Brett Rippon as the backup quarterback. They need to get a good backup quarterback. So they're waiting for a reason, and at least maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe there is no reason. They haven't been able to do anything. So I don't think that the Rodgers thing is going to happen. Now, I certainly, as a media person, as I said, I'd love for it to happen because it'd be great fodder for content.
No doubt
on air.
No doubt there. And I thought, Flacco ended up going to the Browns. I thought the Vikings should have been all over him for a backup, and they didn't do it. So we're with you. We think the backup quarterback position's pretty damn valuable, and a lot of teams don't take it seriously enough for us. But looking ahead to the draft for the Vikings only have 4 picks. So obviously they're a prime candidate to move down or move out of the first round. What are you hearing of who may want to come get that? Is it, hopefully for them, is it a team like Cleveland or the Giants that want to come back and get a quarterback? The Chiefs may want to get a tackle. Who do you think's most likely to pick up the phone to call the Vikings to come get their spot in the draft in the first round?
Well, I think we're pretty safe in saying that neither Cleveland nor the Giants is going to want both on not getting a quarterback in the first round. I would be very surprised by that. So that gives the Vikings a little bit more bargaining power. Here's the problem, though. Crazy is Mensa. It's absolutely strange that he's so bad at drafting. His first draft was abysmal. His second draft, I think Dallas Turner will work out. So in the first round, I like the JJ pick, and I like them going and putting together. That's why they have so many picks. So few many picks this year is about getting Dallas Turner, but he really is terrible at the draft. Other than that, and in free agency though, he kicks butt. I mean, he's had a great free agency offseason this year and last year, and it's got to be he's got people around him who are much better at saying this is what we need. I think the coaches may be getting much more involved in free agency than he's letting him get involved in the draft. I would be surprised if he didn't trade out of the first round because that's what he likes to do. Keep in mind, a few years first draft, he was sitting in the spot where all he had to do was turn the card with Kyle Hamilton's name on it, and he would have had an all-pro safety. He didn't. He went down and just whiffed and got, the Scene kid who turned out to be never made the team. So I don't, I don't put a lot of faith in whether he has 4 picks or 14 picks of him making good choices. If it were me, I would be looking at, and it doesn't have to be in the first round, though, if there's a good one there, they have addressed every single position they need help except for left guard. And that is kind of an important spot, particularly since their left tackle, Chris Darisaw, is coming off an injury, too. They've got to protect whether it is McCarthy or, let's say Rodgers or Cousins or anyone. They've done a lot to shore up the line, get a center, get a right guard. Their tackles are good. So they've really got to do something about left guard, though. And I covered the team as a beat guy when they drafted, going back to, they wind up having one of the great draft picks of all time at left guard for them, Randall McDaniel. He's a Hall of Famer. They had a left side of the line with Gary Zimmerman and Randall McDaniel, and that team, they didn't go to the Super Bowl, but they had some phenomenal years with that group together, or that tandem together.
Todd Stussy and Corey Stringer at tackles. Yes, the Vikings had their day when they were really nailing it on the offensive line. Bob Sansevere is our guest, Twin Cities talk show host, writer. Follow him on X at Bob Sansevere, Sansevere. So are we just blaming Sam Darnold for the Detroit and Rams games then? Because they gave up 9 sacks. Now, the Rams have a terrific front, but they gave up 9 sacks in that playoff game. I'm just curious, are we now blaming Sam Darnold for how the season ended?
No, and I've talked about this on my show and other shows. I'm blaming Kevin O'Connell. After what happened in Philadelphia, first of all, he made no adjustments for the second half when Darnold was getting battered. He had an entire week before the Rams to do something. Get rid of the ball. Call passes, get rid of the ball much quicker. Don't hold the ball. Make Darnold come up with plays where he's not put in a position to get 9 sacks on him. And I have nothing against O'Connell, but he wants quarterbacks that if you recall, not this season, the season before, they picked up the guy Josh Dobbs, the rocket scientist, and he tried to make him into a drop back passer. This guy, he came and had a great first game, but the next game was not nearly as good, and then he was done because O'Connell made him be the type of quarterback that he wants in his system. If you have a guy who can run and can freelance, you got to give him a little more freedom to do things like that. And I don't think that he did, and that's why Dobbs didn't work out for him. And I think that I always thought Darnold had talent. He went to 2 of the most dysfunctional teams in the NFL in this century, the Jets and Carolina. So he never had a chance. And he had, we didn't see a big view of what he could do when he was, coming off from the Niners when he had that one game at the end of the season. But I think once he got here, the talent had a chance to show itself. I don't blame him for what happened in those games. I think it was more the coaches did not adjust to what they had to know. How do you not know that there's going to be an onslaught coming from the Rams? You knew, you have tape, you see how talented they are. So I just don't think that unless they did adjust, we didn't notice it, and it could have been 15 sacks had he not adjusted. But I don't think that's the case at all. And by the way, thanks for the plug there for my shows and where I am on Twitter/X.
When you look at the free agent signings, particularly on defense, they get Allen and Hargrave. Good signings, but they're both coming off injuries. They're both over 30. Are you worried at all about their defensive front?
No, because I think that I would hope that they did their due diligence on the injuries. And if these guys come back to anywhere near what they're capable of, they were good moves. I mean, it's really hard for me to dog the moves that they had. If you give a letter grade, they're certainly, to me, in an A range of what they did. Because this goes pre-O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah. They finally addressed the offensive line, which has been a problem for years. So I give them credit for that's something about this, in terms of grading them. I give them high grades the last 2 years for free agency and very low grades for what they've done in the draft. Again, though, I did like the McCarthy pick. We knew they were going to take a quarterback, and I like the aggressiveness of going after Dallas Turner. I think Turner is going to be a really solid player for them. He just wasn't as a rookie.
They've won 13 and 14 games in 2 of the last 3 years. When you look at the Vikings roster and compare it to the Eagles and to the Lions, okay, where do you think the Vikings roster stacks up in the NFC?
Well, when you take a look, let's just look at their division. The Bears are going to be a lot better. I don't have any doubt about that. Because they have made moves, and they got the biggest move was getting a coach who I think is going to be very good for them, Ben Johnson. And I think they're going to be a lot better. Detroit's the team that might slide a little bit. I think the Vikings, all four of them, Green Bay is going to be very solid. I mean, they're going to be the division games are going to be fierce because I don't think there's a team in that group that you say, well, that's the Patriots. They're going to just lose to everybody else in the division. And Detroit did lose talent. And not only, they lost a lot of coaching talent, both coordinators and some good players. So we'll have to see how they can pick. There's still talent there, sure. But we have to see how much of a fall-off they can have. I think the Vikings could have a superior year. A lot of people are worried that J.J. is too young to take. As a matter of fact, the Chuck Foreman, we did a show yesterday. I mentioned him earlier, and he doesn't think J.J. can do it as a second-year player, and he was not a big fan of his in college. I don't understand that because all the kid did was win. So I think he's going to be fine. I really do, and I think maybe that's what they feel. But as each nanosecond passes, I become more and more a fan of making a deal to get Rodgers, just because I'll have something to talk about every single day. I won't go on the Pat McAfee show. He's going on the Pat McAfee show. Oh, I'll mention Jay. Well, I didn't have time. I had to go to a cave and have darkness, nothing but darkness for a week to get ready for the season. He'll still do this. He's not the type of person that's going to change. I mean, we've heard this from people before in our own personal lives. People don't change, and he's not going to change if he came here.
He's host of the BS Show, and he writes the BS blog, and BS stands for Bob Sansevere. Follow him on X at Bob Sansevere, Sansevere. Bob, enjoy the draft. Hopefully we can catch up sometime afterwards.
I appreciate it, and I know I got a little long-winded there, but it's I'm in the midst of doing my show, so I tend to talk too much.
Trust me, Bob.
For us, Bob.
Yeah, we interviewed Tim Brando occasionally. Trust me, Bob, you're fine.
All right, thanks so much. Take care, guys.
Bob Sansevere out of the Twin Cities, kind enough to join us here on Miller and Moulton. So he thinks they're going to wait till after the draft and pry Cousins away from the Falcons and reinsert him as the starter.
I'm fascinated by the whole Cousins thing of where and if they even move him.
Well, you and I both would be like, it costs us more money to get rid of him than keep him. What? Penix has played 3-4 games. Why wouldn't we just keep him? We don't. Once again, don't care if he's happy. Shut up and cash the checks.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS.
Honey, you want to come out? I haven't seen you since Glass Doctor installed our custom shower enclosure.
No thanks.
Well, you can't keep eating breakfast in the shower, and laminating your magazines is getting expensive. You remember we have guests coming over tonight, right?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love to see the shower.
It's our neighbors, and I highly doubt they want to be hanging out in our bathroom.
The shower's so good, you'll never want to leave. Visit glassdoctor.com today and schedule an appointment online.
We've got a text message for Dr. Dollar. I feel tired, sluggish, and just not myself. I'm gaining weight, my energy is low, and I've lost my drive. Could it be low testosterone?
Absolutely. Testosterone naturally declines over time, but you don't have to accept it. Low T can affect your energy, strength, mood, and focus. But here's the good news. Testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, can help restore your vitality and get you back to feeling your best. Imagine waking up strong, sharp, and energized, ready to take on the day like you used to. At Revitalize Clinic, we specialize in physician-guided, American-made TRT designed just for you.
Take control of your health today. Call Revitalize Clinic at 239-277-5770. Visit revitalizelounge.com or text Dr. Dollar directly at 239-980-2302. Feel like yourself again. Testosterone replacement therapy, because your best years aren't behind you, they're just getting started. Text Dr. Dollar now at 239-980-2302.
This is Miller and Moulton. You're listening to Miller and Moulton, coming at you from the Floor Meister Studios. Floor Meisters, keeping it real. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
It is the bonus hour of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday, a week away from the NFL draft. And we certainly talked a lot of draft today, at least in the second half of the show thus far. Little NBA and NHL playoff talk as well. NBA playoffs technically underway with the play-in. Heat, a winner last night, have a chance to play their way into the full playoff field with a win tomorrow night in Atlanta. I just don't think the Heat, without Jimmy Butler, can give, Cleveland a series. I don't think this is like a few years ago when they caught Milwaukee at the right time and they had Jimmy Butler, and next thing you know, they pulled the shocking upset.
Obviously when you look at the East, and we've talked about this, I don't care what the Heat do this weekend. I don't, because they're not going anywhere. We're going to get Boston and we're going to get Cleveland in the Eastern Conference Finals. Unless someone has a major injury, I don't see how that doesn't happen. But when you look at the NHL, and we've been gung-ho on the Lightning and the Panthers, but one of the teams that I think we should be paying attention to, and I'm just throwing it out there now, are the Carolina Hurricanes. They're playing a New Jersey team in the first round that's not healthy. Their two best players are out. New Jersey's not winning that series. If they were healthy, it would be a much more competitive series, but they're not. Then they probably get the Caps, who have no playoff pedigree whatsoever. So to me, if you were to take a flyer, you only got to win one more series after that, and you're playing for the Cup. I think Carolina, I don't think they can win the Cup, but I think they can go to the Eastern Conference Final and give whomever gets banged up through the first two rounds of those series a decent run.
I'm curious if we get the big upset in either the NBA or the NHL playoffs in the first round. Do we get the big upset? Do we get a wild card team taking down a one? Does St. Louis or Minnesota have it in them to take out Winnipeg or Vegas? Does Montreal or Ottawa have it in them to take down the Caps or the Leafs? Remember, the Blues fired their coach, hired Jim Montgomery, who had been fired by Boston. And Montgomery had the Blues playing great hockey here in the final month of the season. People trying to bring up the similarities between the 25 Blues and the 2019 Blues, who had the worst record in the NHL on New Year's Eve that year and ended up hoisting Lord Stanley. Now, I think that's a little bit of a reach because there were some quality veterans on that 2019 team, but still. Curious if we get the big upset, In the NBA, right now, Golden State's the 7. It's going to be either Dallas or Memphis, the 8. Can a 1 or 2 seed be taken out? We'd be stunned if it happened in the East. Absolutely stunned. Would we be stunned if two franchises with no playoff pedigree in Oklahoma City and Houston got taken out in the first round?
I'd be stunned if Oklahoma City got taken out in the first round. Stunned. Absolutely, I would be. But I wouldn't be at all. I mean, no one's going to be surprised if Golden State beats Houston.
Like you mentioned, they're the betting favorite in the series, aren't they?
I believe so. Yeah, Golden State's minus 200 to win the series.
Wow.
You can get the Rockets at plus 160. That's a 2 seed.
I think you got to throw a few shekels on the Rockets.
I mean, that's, to me, the best value bet in the first round.
By the way,
they're physical. You know, I've not watched a lot of Rockets basketball, but the Rockets are a really physical team.
They are.
What's Golden State? Old. They are. Their best players are old. All of them.
Houston's young and physical. Golden State is older and not physical.
Right. More of a finesse team. So I just think I think people are banking on Steph and playoff Jimmy to do what they did in the playoff game 4 times. And they may. It's the what you don't have to play well all 7. You got to play well in 4. And maybe they get that out of their cagey veterans. But I think it's amazing that Golden State's that big of a favorite in the first round.
We'll spend a lot of time on the Panthers Lightning series tomorrow, and it obviously will get underway this weekend. Back to Golden State, 2, I think, interesting tidbits. All the years that Steph's been at Golden State and all the playoff games they've played. Mark, the play-in game against Memphis, the very first time that Steph scored more than 35 points in a playoff game and wasn't the leading scorer on his team. That for as terrific as his supporting cast has been, he had 37 Tuesday night. Jimmy Buckets at 38. First time in Steph's legendary career that that's ever happened. And Kerr was asked about it. And Kerr said, I know we're always going to get compared to the teams that we had, last decade. He said, here is something that Jimmy brings us that we have literally never had. We've always been a motion offense team. We've always had to move the ball and set a lot of screens. He said, that takes a lot. Even with Durant, he said, we couldn't play as much isolation basketball as we can play with Jimmy. Jimmy's a guy you can get the ball to and just get out of his way, and he can get you buckets or get to the line.
Well, and that's going to be important against Houston. What we just talked about. What's Houston? Young, long, physical.
Physical.
Yeah. And the long's the key there because they'll switch off of any screen. The way that their style and the way that they play defensively, they're just going to switch. So the screen game shouldn't be as effective where Jimmy Butler in isolation, maybe. I worry about the Warriors defense as well. I don't know who they can guard.
Well, and I worry about them on the glass. But NBA, NHL playoffs get underway with full field action, if you will, because obviously the NBA with 2 play-in games Tuesday, 2 play-in games last night, no action tonight, and then 2 winner-go-home games tomorrow night. And then their full playoffs are underway over the weekend, and the NHL full playoff field underway over the weekend as well. Last day of the NHL regular season is tonight. There are literally no games of importance.
If you were hoping for one, unfortunately, Carolina lost to Montreal last night. You needed a Carolina regulation win. That would have meant Columbus's game counted tonight. But since Montreal got it done last night against the Hurricanes, there's nothing left to play for in the NHL. No seeding, nothing.
So there you have it. You have a few instances in which, there are guys possibly playing their final game ever or playing their final game in the uniform that they're going to wear tonight. Like there is an interesting situation at Madison Square Garden tonight. Never mind the fact that, they've drawn out this whole Sam Rosen's end of his career. Well, this will be his final broadcast tonight. But Chris Kreider is one of the best Rangers of all time. He's had a horrible year. And not only has he had a bad year, the word is he's kind of been a part of why it is the Rangers' room has been so awful. And so it seems as if it's a foregone conclusion that Chris Kreider is going to be traded this offseason. Well, then that means his final Rangers game is tonight. Well, he left straight out of BC in 2012 and joined them in the 2012 playoffs on their way to the conference finals. So we're talking about a long career here, 13 plus years. And, how do you honor it? He's been a bit of a dog this year by most people's accounts, and yet he's been an all-time terrific Ranger before this year.
And he and they going out as the fourth team in the history of the league to lead the league in points one year and not qualify for the playoffs the next. So I'm with you. How do you send him off? Speaking of hockey, who would you vote for the MVP? Because I think Draisaitl's going to get it. And the fact that Kucherov really doesn't get mentioned as one of the, maybe the third or fourth guy is a little ridiculous to me. Leading the league in points, 84 helpers this year. Obviously, with Stamkos leaving, you wonder how the team was going to go. Kucherov is so damn good. And it amazes me he gets no love for the MVP.
Yeah, I think voting for Draisaitl over Kucherov's a disgrace. I mean, I know statistically this doesn't measure up, but I think Ovechkin would be on my short list. I mean, a lot of his goals were meaningful, and he took a team that had the final playoff spot last year and got swept in the first round, and he scored a lot of big goals for them, and they rode his Superman cape at the age of 39 to the number one seed in the East.
He'll get more consideration than Kucherov will.
Which is a joke.
It's a joke. I mean, I think Tampa Bay Lightning fans are witnessing one of the game's best players, and he is almost floating under the radar because of McDavid, McKinnon, and others.
I know Draisaitl's got ridiculous numbers, but, I mean, they're a third-place team, for goodness sakes. They underachieved most of the regular season. I mean, can you really give somebody like that the MVP? Miller and Moulton.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to NolanAgency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or NolanAgency.com. Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
This is Miller and Moulton.
Well, sorry about that logic, man.
That's what you get for getting your kid an electric scooter for his birthday.
How old is he?
Apparently he's old enough to have a scooter.
Break an ankle or a wrist?
You know, Canada Relief, that is an excellent point, because I think he's got the most goals in a lot of years for a D-man. That's a great point.
Makar?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could vote for him. Although they finished third.
You're listening to Miller and Moulton. And now, here's Mark Miller and David Moulton.
21 minutes past the hour. Miller and Moulton, millerandmoulton.com, Miller_Moulton on X. What are you more geeked up for, the hockey or the basketball playoffs that get underway in earnest this weekend? That's our poll question. NBA or NHL playoffs? That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X. And I voted hockey strictly for the Panthers Lightning series.
I voted hockey because it's the greatest playoffs in any sport. I know it's not the most popular, and I'm not trying to say that it is, but I believe that the NHL's tournament is the best tournament there is, and I don't think it's close. I think it's better than the NFL. I think it's better than baseball, and I think it's better than the NBA. If I were to rank them, I would go hockey, football, the Masters, the Kentucky Derby, and then I would tie baseball and basketball.
Wow, you're really going off the beaten path here. I was waiting for a little March Madness, college football playoff. How long do you think till we like the college football playoff as a whole? You know, that we're excited about everybody who's in it, if you know what I mean.
You know, that's a really good question, because I would follow it up with the question, is that how excited is everybody about college football right now compared to where they were just a couple of years ago? And the numbers show that we watch, but excited about. And I think it would take a first round upset. They need their moment. They need that game where SMU beats Penn State.
You mean where Arizona State was a play away from beating
Right.
Texas? Right. I don't disagree. Now, they'll redo the seeding and we'll get better, more balanced first round matchups. But I don't know how excited we're going to be about them, because just about every single team in the matchup is a power conference school. So also the time of the year that the playoffs are happening, they're jamming them in the weekend before Christmas. And that's why I wonder if, we all know why they're doing it, money and stay away from the NFL and all that. But I just don't know if the college football playoff, when is the first round really going to compel us? And I think it could be a while. Now, I think once we get to the quarterfinals, people think that most everybody who's still playing can win the Natty.
Do you think that because of how poorly the road teams did in that first round, that the committee will have a philosophical change as to who they let in? That next year, Indiana's not getting in ahead of Alabama, if you know what I mean. Do you think
I
there was a
believe.
fundamental change? Because if there is, I think the first round games may be more compelling.
I do think that there won't be an Indiana in the next few years. There won't be a team who puts up the gaudy record, but you can really question the resume. And I think that 11-1 Indiana will be referenced as to why it is that so-and-so didn't get in. They'll be like, yeah, we made We gave Indiana the benefit of the doubt in 2024, and that turned out to be a mistake. Next time we'll go with but I will say, all those other teams made it really difficult on the committee. If they had managed to get the horse into the barn at 10-2, it's a lot easier for the committee to put 10-2 Bama, 10-2 Miami, 10-2 Ole Miss in the committee over 11-1 Indiana. It's a lot harder to put 9-3 team in over 11-1.
And they all have games. Alabama, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, and Florida. They all have their moments that we can talk about. But when you look back upon Indiana's schedule or lack thereof, I think the 9-3 team would get the nod next year. And it may not be 4 years from now, but I think next year they'll get the nod.
And I do think that since we're going to have unbalanced conference scheduling for the rest of time, that the committee is going to have to make difficult decisions like that. They're just going to have to say, yeah, so-and-so went 7-1 or 8-1 in the Big Ten. Can we closely examine who they played and when they played them?
And the obligation becomes upon the Big Ten for the middle of that conference to get better. There's no worry about the top. Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, they're all doing what they do, and they'll be fine. What has to happen is the rest of the conference has to pick up the slack. There needs to be more Indianas. Sparty's got to get their head out of the toilet. Nebraska would be nice if they ever play football again. Obviously, the big one is USC.
But you're talking about the Wisconsins, the Iowas. Illinois ended up with 10 wins last year, and Illinois is going to be highly ranked in the preseason this year, probably top 15 preseason rankings. Now, it's not a sexy name, though. People actually look at it and will hold it against the Big Ten. What's the Illinois equivalent in the SEC, Mark? Kentucky?
Yeah.
I mean, put it this way, though, but when South Carolina went 9-3 last year, people were talking them up that they deserved a playoff spot. How much sexier is South Carolina as a football program than Illinois?
Not much. Not much. But this is where the brand of the SEC top to bottom just weighs out that much more than what the Big Ten has right now. And that's why a 10-win season back-to-back from Illinois would be a really big deal for them.
No question. No question.
Now you got to look at their schedule.
The other interesting thing is, we've had back-to-back Big Ten national champions. Big Ten got more playoff teams than the SEC did last year. Now, we're bringing up a reason in which we think maybe they wouldn't give Indiana that spot last year and what have you. Okay. But, how did the SEC become the SEC? They did it by winning natties. Now, there was, at first, only 2 teams that could, make the playoff and play for the natty. And they were managing to make it and win it. And then when there was 4, they were managing most years to make it and win it. Well, Michigan did it with 4. Ohio State did it with 12. I mean, if the Big Ten puts a 3rd straight natty on the board, and there are going to be a lot of people picking Penn State, by the way. Wait for it. A lot of people picking Penn State. People making the case that what Penn State has done this offseason was what Ohio State did last year. And Ohio State spent a ton of money on bringing their guys back. And that's what Penn State did. A legit top 10 team in the country. Made it to the national semis. And outside of the kid who's going to be drafted in the top 3, everybody's coming back.
Well, outside of the kid drafted in the top 3 and then the kid drafted in the top 15 on the other side of the ball. I mean, they're losing their most important offensive weapon and their best defensive player.
That's true.
and they have no receivers.
Well, I'll grant you that. They remind me a lot of Nebraska 30 plus years ago, where Nebraska could get to a certain point, but they didn't have the playmakers to beat the Miamis and the Florida States and what have you. And then they went and got them.
But Penn State and playmakers, that's going to be the key. Can they get past the Buckeyes? But they can, they don't have to get in the playoff. They proved that and made a good run. Miller and Moulton.
Whether you're chasing peak performance, reigniting intimacy, or simply want to feel your best, Game Day Men's Health creates customized game plans to optimize your health. Call 239-427-3441 for our Bonita Springs and Naples location to set up your free testosterone test and consultation. Mention Miller Moulton Radio Show for 10% off your service. Find your maximum self with Game Day Men's Health, Bonita Springs and Naples, Florida. Call 239-427-3441 today.
Wine glasses never fall over until you get a brand new rug.
Oh, no!
Ketchup bottles act normal till you're wearing a new shirt.
Oh, you kidding me?
And rocks slide peacefully on the road till the day you get a brand new windshield. Then they fly up off the road and attack without mercy. That's why new windshields from Glass Doctor come with our windshield protection plan. Unlimited repairs and one replacement for 12 months. Don't just fix it, protect it. Glass Doctor. A neighborly company.
Mark Miller for Molly Maid. Why Molly Maid, you ask? Trust. Moulton was a customer for 15 years. Affordability. Didn't I just say Moulton was a customer for 15 years? Worry-free services. Our professional house cleaners are fully insured and a 24-hour warranty. Call Molly Maids today at 239-774-5839. That's 239-774-5839 or online at mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. That's mollymaid.com/FTMYERS. Mark Miller for Sleep Treatment Direct. They are helping me with sleep apnea. And by helping me, I mean curing me. No more CPAP machine, no more snoring, no more tossing, no more waking up exhausted. Their expert team got me the right treatment fast and hassle-free. If you want to feel energized and get rid of your snoring, call Sleep Treatment Direct today. 444-1741. That's 239-444-1741. Sleep Treatment Direct. Sleep safe and
This
sound.
is Miller and Moulton. Welcome back to Miller and Moulton. Text the guys what's in your mind at 21,000. That's 21000. And now, here's David Moulton.
Home stretch of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday. Pat Kerwin joins us on the show tomorrow. In-depth Lightning Panthers preview as we look ahead to the NHL playoffs as well. Tomorrow, here on Miller and Moulton. Our poll question. So which playoffs you more excited for? Hoop or hockey? NBA or NHL? That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, Miller_Moulton on X.
It's that time again, nearing the end, but not quite there yet. Here's Mark Miller with Today Was the Day When.
Today was the day when, brought to you by Game Day Men's Health. Call them right now, 427-3441. Find your maximal self with Game Day Men's Health. Visit them online, GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Locations, Bonita Springs and Naples. Mention those guys, Miller and Moulton, and get 10% off. We start today in 1860. When the champion of England, Tom Sayers, and American John Heenan fight in what is acknowledged as the first world title bout. It ended in a draw after 2 hours and 27 minutes.
Wow.
Could you imagine watching one of those bare knuckle fights that went round? I mean, the endurance that these men must have had to just beat the snot out of one another for over 2 hours.
Unreal.
1947, Jackie Robinson gets his first major league hit. It was a bunt single. 1951, Mickey Mantle makes his major league debut. He goes 1 for 4. 1961, 1,400 Cuban exiles land in the Bay of Pigs in a doomed attempt to overthrow Castro. In 63, Pete Rozelle suspends Paul Hornung and Alex Karras indefinitely for betting on football games.
As Hornung was asked, did you bet on the NFL? Yeah. Did you bet on the Packers? Yeah, we're good.
Today in 1964, the Ford Mustang is formally introduced. The base sticker on the 64 Mustang, $2,368. One of my favorite where music meets sports stories of all time. It was today in 1983 that Joe Strummer of The Clash runs the London Marathon. He finished in 4 hours and 13 minutes. He claims that his training included 10 pints of beer the night before the race. Tim Couch was selected first overall today in 1999 by the Cleveland Browns. And today in 2011, the Game of Thrones premiered on HBO. J.P. Morgan, Harry Reisner, Don Kirshner, Born Selming, and Roddy Piper would have all celebrated birthdays today. Marquise Grissom is 58, Tony Baselli 53, so is Jennifer Garner for that matter, and Victoria Beckham is 51. What did I miss, David?
Did you go Bay of Pigs today?
I did.
I thought you did. General Hospital, 23 years ago, had its 10,000th episode. Think about how many episodes they ended up airing all time. Oh. But that's it.
All right. Fair enough. Then let's get to it.
Time to see life a little bit differently. Here's Mark Miller with the good, the bad, and the ugly. What you got, Mark?
We go to Massachusetts for the good, where officers were flagged down by a local resident who spotted a raccoon stuck in a storm drain gate. The officers removed the storm drain cover, but the raccoon was still stuck. Apparently, at that point, Fernando Rivera Jr. stepped in to help. It broke open a pair of laundry detergent pods to use as lubricant for the raccoon's head, and they were able to free the raccoon. Now, what I'm trying to figure out is who the hell's walking around with laundry pods?
I'm with you.
You know, dental floss? Sure. Nail clippers? Yeah, I get it. Hell, a lighter. I understand. But laundry pods. For the bad, we go to Cape Coral, where Cape Coral police arrested a woman yesterday, Charlene Tedesco, who was using pepper spray on dogs because she feared they may attack her. She was spraying the dogs who were in a fenced area. The dogs never showed any aggression, and she used pepper spray on the dogs for fear that they would attack. They were in a dog park that was surrounded by a fence. She was arrested on one count of animal cruelty. And finally, the ugly, we go to Bradenton, where you may know the name Frederick Piccolo Jr. At one time, he was Governor DeSantis' chief spokesperson. He's certainly not anymore, and he's no longer the director of media and marketing for the New College of Florida's administration's office, because he was arrested at the mall for exposing himself.
I hate when that happens.
Apparently, it's not the first time he's done it.
Oh, boy.
He likes to go into dressing rooms and then get naked and wait for someone to open the curtain, or he opens it himself. It's the fourth set of charges in the last 8 months for similar behavior. How does that guy get hired anywhere? Question we ponder on today's Good, Bad, and Ugly here on Miller and Moulton.
No NBA tonight. The two final play-in games are tomorrow night. Miami, Atlanta, Dallas, Memphis, both tomorrow night. There's 7 NHL games tonight. They have no meaning whatsoever in the standings. The 16 playoff teams are set where they're seated are set. For what it's worth, the Lightning in action at Madison Square against the Rangers. ESPN, however, does have a meaningless hockey doubleheader. 7 o'clock. Do you think Ovechkin plays? Do you think Crosby plays? It's Caps Penguins. And then 9:30, Calgary and the LA Kings, a game that nearly had a ton of meaning until the Wild scored with 21 seconds left in regulation the other night to make sure that they made the playoffs. But a hockey double dip on ESPN tonight.
The Heritage going on in South Carolina. It's an elevated event. Rory's going to take the fine. He's not playing, but everyone else is. And they're underway. Early round coverage, I believe, is on ESPN+.
I think you're allowed to miss one, aren't you, or no?
Yeah, I think you're allowed to miss one.
Yeah, and I don't know if he's missed an elevated event yet this year. I mean, because he won out in Pebble, which was an elevated event. But I think there's 10 baseball games, handful of them this afternoon. Marlins, a mighty nooner against the Diamondbacks. The roof's been open all week. Think they do 10,000?
No.
They've done 7 and 8 the last 2 nights. Rays are home tonight on Amazon for the Yankees at 7 o'clock. And there's an FS1 game tonight. Your Tigers hosting the Royals at 6:40.
That is my kind of sporting event right there. I mean, that's got Big East basketball written all over it, David.
Same network, FS1. Yep. About 9:15, that sucker's done. Get a pitching matchup. Could be done by 9. If you get a lot of offense, it's done by 9:30. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. But Giants and Phillies in Philadelphia late this afternoon. Can the Giants really take 3 or 4 in Philly? Be curious how that
What
would
an
end.
impressive start by the Giants.
Oh, my goodness.
13-5 off the hop. Still a game and a half behind the Padres, who, after losing their first home game 2 days ago, won yesterday in beating the Cubs, and they are off to just an unbelievable start at 15-4. I mean, look at the Diamondbacks are only 3.5 back. They're 11-7. They're 4 games above 500, 20 games into the season, basically. They're in 4th place. That's how good the NL West has started out this year.
Well,
and then, of course, there's the Rockies.
What's interesting, the top 4 teams by record and winning percentage in the National League are all in the West. Now, the Diamondbacks and Mets are tied with the same record. But, I mean, Mark, right now, and obviously there's only 140 plus games left, but literally the Padres would win the West, the Giants, Dodgers, and Diamondbacks would be the wild cards, and the Mets and Cubs are division champs. All 3 wild cards would come from the West. Now, we don't expect that to be the case. I would expect the second place team in the National League East to make the playoffs, but how gaudy that division is.
At the expense of which one? Because the Diamondbacks were a preseason, not favorite to win the division. But if you were to ask most people who was going to make the playoffs out of the West, a lot of people would have voted for the Diamondbacks after the Dodgers. You know, people were talking with the Padres already getting rid of some of the salary they had brought on, that they might have that might be a team that was going to be selling. Obviously, with the start they're off to, that's not going to be the case. And the Giants were sneaky to hang around 500. How long will they be able to keep up this great pace that they've started on? But, you know, you remember a couple of years ago, Tampa Bay got off to that unbelievable start, and they were able to ride that sucker to the postseason. So we'll see what happens out west.
Pat Kerwin on the show tomorrow as we continue to preview the draft. Also, listen, who knows? Maybe by tomorrow, Jalen Ramsey's traded. I mean, they're actively trying to. Deal could happen at any time. It is fascinating to me. This has not happened since the merger. All 32 teams still have their first round pick.
And I don't think that will change until Thursday. Like, I don't think there's a trade happening that's going to involve a first rounder between now and Thursday. I think there will be on draft day. I think there will be a few moves, particularly in the second half of the first round. But I don't see, put it this way, who's given up a 1 for Ramsey?
I think it's possible, not likely, but I do think it's possible for the NFC, you know, Lions and Packers. I think it's a possibility. I mean, what are the Packers? 20, 23, 25, the Lions 28. I mean, position of need, not a great position of strength in the draft. Now, I think, Mark, what it could be, though, it could be one of those, you give up your 1, but then you mitigate it by, you know, flip-flopping picks later on, or you get a first-round pick, but then the Packers get your 4th-round pick. You know, so that the overall value of it's a second-round pick that we gave up. But I think it's possible. I also think it may be possible on draft day. I think it's more likely to happen that Thursday than it is before it.
And what will be it? You know, I wonder if Tampa would kick the tires on Ramsey. They've brought in every cornerback that's available in the draft. I, mean, that's of their 30 visits, I think like 7 cornerbacks have visited Tampa.
I give up my second rounder. I don't know if I'd give up number 19 because I can get a good defensive lineman at 19, and I don't know if I can pass that up.
So I just wonder, I would throw Tampa in there. I wouldn't give up a 1, but I think based on all of the draft homework they've been doing, they certainly appear to be in the market for a corner.
So Pat Kerwin tomorrow. We'll preview especially the NHL playoffs with the Lightning and the Panthers series getting underway this weekend. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and thanks for spending it with us, Miller and Moulton.
For over 50 years, the Nolan family has been dedicated to protecting local families. Nolan Family Insurance is a second-generation independent agency that specializes in home, flood, auto, and boat insurance. They take the time needed to explain your coverage options and answer your questions so you can make an informed decision that's right for you. If you're looking for an agency that treats you like family, call 941-639-1122 or go to nolanagency.com. That's 941-639-1122 or nolanagency.com.
Honey, you want to come out? I haven't seen you since Glass Doctor installed our custom shower enclosure.
No thanks.
Well, you can't keep eating breakfast in the shower, and laminating your magazines is getting expensive. You remember we have guests coming over tonight, right?
Oh, I'm sure they'd love to see the shower.
It's our neighbors, and I highly doubt they want to be hanging out in our bathroom.
The shower is so good, you'll never want to leave. Visit glassdoctor.com today and schedule an appointment online.
American Paint Supplies, for nearly 30 years, is your one-stop shop for all your coating needs. If you are a designer, a contractor, a professional painter, or a weekend warrior, American Paint Supplies is the place where experts go to get expert solutions. At 6100 Shirley Street in Naples off of Pine Ridge, American Paint Supplies delivers the best solutions with the best products with the best support. Meet Gene and his team today at American Paint Supplies. Call 239-566-2700. That's 566-2700 or online at AmericanPaintSupplies.net.
Basketball's heating up the hardwood. What a great time to stop in at the Floor Meisters and look at their hardwood. A large selection to choose from, including Mirage hardwood flooring. Floor Meisters has a look and style you want. Mirage wood is grown and made in Canada from the finest quality wood flooring you'll find. And while you're in, ask to see the Petite Enfant collection. 5 custom colors made only for the Floor Meisters. So good it has a 35-year warranty. Floor Meisters, 6281 Naples Boulevard, next to Costco, or floormeisters.com.
We've got a text message for Dr. Dollar. A few of my friends are taking daily Cialis or Viagra. What are the benefits and how much does it cost?
Great question. Cialis, Tadalafil, and Viagra, Sildenafil are game changer for men who want better performance, stamina, and confidence. They improve blood flow, support long-lasting performance, and help you feel like yourself again. And the best part, at Revitalize Clinic, we make it affordable. Less than $1 per pill. No overpriced prescription, no hassle, just real results, American-made, at the best prices in town. Plus, with early hours starting at 5:30 in the morning, we fit your schedule.
Take control of your health today. Call Revitalize Clinic at 239-277-5770. Visit revitalizelounge.com or text Dr. Dollar directly at 239-980-2302. That's 239-980-2302. Get results. Get confidence. Revitalize Clinic, because every man deserves to perform at his best without breaking the bank. Text Dr. Dollar now at 239-980-2302.
This is Miller and Moulton,